All right, I'd like to welcome everybody to the Crawford County, Illinois Ghost Hunter Society live talk show, episode number 2. We've got a big show tonight. We've got a special guest on here tonight. Dale Merrick's with us in the house, so he's going to be talking to us tonight about ghosts and hauntings, and we're going to interview him. We got a jam-packed show tonight. We are also going to draw for our contest tonight, so definitely stay tuned for that. We're going to do that right here at the beginning while I've got everybody on here so we see who actually won our contest. So we are definitely going to get going quick here with this show tonight. It's going to be a jam-packed show. We're going to go about 2 hours, interview Dale. Dale's got a lot of stories to tell about, the adventures he's been on up in the Chicagoland area. I know we've done a lot of investigations with him up in that area, so it's going to be really cool. And I'd like to welcome everybody to the Crawford County, Illinois Ghost Hunter Society live talk show, episode number 2. You can check out our website at crawfordcountyghosthunters.org. We also have an email address you can check out. If you want to email us, definitely, give us information on locations. If you want us to come investigate a spot, send us an email or contact us on our Facebook page. Our email is illinoishauntings@gmail.com. Our Facebook page, if you're not watching from Facebook, is Facebook.com/Crawford County Ghost Hunters. And we are dual streaming tonight onto YouTube. This is our YouTube page. youtube.com/Crawford County Ghost Hunters. So definitely check that out. We are dual streaming on there right now. If you're watching on YouTube, I apologize again. I am only monitoring Facebook. So if you guys ask a message or want questions answered, please use our Facebook platform at the moment. We are going to get it to where we can look at YouTube and answer your questions from there as well. But right now we are just on Facebook. So check that out. Instagram. You can visit our Instagram page at Instagram.com/Crawford County Ghost Hunters. The music tonight is by the Midnight Syndicate. All rights reserved, used with permission. We do have permission to use their music. You can visit their website at midnightsyndicate.com. Check them out. Definitely give them a like. But they are they let us use our music, so that's pretty cool. So we will go right into we're going to start drawing here. We're going to figure out who won our contest here. We had quite a few entries, and last night we went we kind of had an investigation last night. We went to the spur of the moment. A guy called us or sent me a message, said, "Hey, can you come check out my house?" I don't know if you guys watched any of that or not, but it was really cool. We went into this old house that we never investigated in Oblong, Illinois, and done a paranormal investigation. So we were trying to contact a specific guy in there, and I forgot to tell you guys who we were trying to contact, but the name of that guy was Harry. So if you guys heard of Harry over our ghost box last night, that's who we were trying to get a hold of. But I am going to get straight to business here tonight. We've got a huge show. We got a lot of good shows coming up in the future too. We're going to have special guests like Joe Turry, the guy who's producing and doing our documentary for the hanging of Betsy Reed. We were filming that all day the other day also. He's going to be on the show. We're going to talk with him. It's going to be pretty cool. So, all right. I think everybody's saying they liked the investigation last night. That's pretty neat. Everybody's tuning in. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. And I got a box here. And there's people that submitted in our contest. Everybody's name is in this little clear box here, but I'm going to kind of take this lid off here and show you guys. Everybody's, well, I'm not going to go through everybody's name, but I'm going to show you, this thing isn't rigged here. I'm trying to hold it, and we got, everybody's different names that signed up. We appreciate all of you. We've got I think we ended up with 16 or 17 people in here. They're all different names. Nothing's rigged here. We're going to put it in this thing. I'm going to shake it up, and I'm going to draw out right now here at the beginning of the show. And this was a contest we did earlier on. So it was a contest we put out there, and you guys went and sent likes to all your friends. And it wasn't about who had the most, invitations sent out. It was about, we're just you helping us out, and, us showing your support to us. We're going to give you free tickets to our 2020 haunted tours. Trying to watch the comments here too. Sorry, guys. But yeah, we're going to give you 2 free tickets to our haunted tours this year in 2020. And 2020 is a full moon, so that's going to be awesome. And if you don't want the tour, the ticket to the haunted tours, you can. Trying to read comments. You guys can come on one of our live feeds for free with a friend. You guys can bring a friend with you. So I'm going to shake this thing up here. So I have no idea who I'm drawing from. I need an assistant here, but nobody's here to help me, so I'm doing this myself. Give me a thumbs up if you think that's shook up enough, guys. If not, I'll keep shaking it for a couple hours. Okay, nobody's giving me a thumbs up, but I'm going to quit shaking. All right, I'm going to draw a name out of the box here. So, let's see who it is. Looks like it is Tammy Joe. So that is the name we drew here. We've got Tammy Joe. You just won 2 free tickets to our haunted tours in 2020, or you can appear with us on a live feed. So that's pretty cool. One of our top fans there just won our contest, and we'll be doing several more contests here in the future. So don't think that's the only one you guys are going to be able to get in on. We're going to do a lot of contests where we give away some things. We're going to have some CDs to give away here in the near future. We're also going to start doing product reviews and gear reviews on the show, like haunted gear reviews, of paranormal equipment. What's the best type of equipment, what we use over the years, best for us. So we're going to do a lot of gear reviews again with this show. And my screen just blanked out. Not sure what happened there. We are going to go right into our first guest tonight, or our special guest tonight. He is a pioneer in the field of paranormal research. We've been doing a lot of investigations with Dale for a long time. And our first guest tonight will be, Dale Kaczmarek. I'm going to show you guys a little clip here, if I can get it up and going. But Dale, he's from the Chicagoland area. We've been doing investigations together for a while now. We investigated the old Paris Hospital together. I think one of our first investigations we done back in the day. But Dale's been doing a lot of stuff with us. I really enjoy, going out with Dale and his team and doing investigations, co-op investigations. He runs a ghost research society up in the Chicagoland area. He's the author of several books, including like Windy City Ghosts, Windy City Ghosts 2. He's got a book on ghost hunting and digital photography. I'll let him kind of tell you all about that when I get him in here. But I'm going to go right into our first guest tonight, and it's going to be Dale Kaczmarek from the Ghost Research Society.
My name is Dale Kaczmarek. I'm the president of the Ghost Research Society. I've been involved in ghost research since 1975. I lived here in Oak Lawn since 1976, and this was just a quiet neighborhood I decided to settle down after I got out of the Army in 1974. This is kind of my office. I don't do a lot of stuff in here except just some typing, but behind me is my extensive library of books and reference material. I have my file cabinets with all my cases and places we've investigated, maps of the sites around Chicago, and of course my little ghost collection that you see, which I've collected for a number of years. What first piqued my interest in getting involved in ghost research was really my parents telling me stories, my grandparents and parents both telling me ghost stories when I was a youngster. And when I grew up later into adulthood, I wanted to find out if these stories were true, or old wives' tales or urban legends. Well, the Ghost Research Society basically was founded by just myself and a man named Martin V. Ricardo. So we do a lot of extensive work into the research. That's even before we get involved on the paranormal end to bring in our equipment to try to document what's there. A lot of times when we go to locations, we try to get, my wife does not like this at all, but I like to bring home little, I call them souvenirs or mementos of locations I've been at. Sometimes, unfortunately, ghosts can be attached to things that are brought back. The reason I'm still doing this after 41 years is the real excitement of doing these investigations. I mean, they can be fun. My passion for getting in this field and staying in this field is to get that aha moment or that aha piece of videotape or audio tape that I could bring into the public and say, here I believe is definitive proof that something exists beyond the grave.
All right, everyone, ladies and gentlemen, the one, the only, Mr. Dale Kaczmarek. He's here with us in the house tonight. So he's our special guest. How you doing, Dale?
Fine. Thanks for the invite, Jason. Greatly appreciate it.
No problem. How you been?
Oh, I've been busy. Can't do much with the coronavirus nowadays, but so I've been kind of locked downstairs here in my basement, so to speak, and doing a lot of research, looking into different locations, planning some things, even though, we may or may not be able to do things this year. We'll just have to see how that works. But hopefully we'll be able to get out there and do investigations, because I kind of envy you guys out there and sort of out in the middle of nowhere. You guys can go out and do some investigating. I just can't do that. I'm kind of in more of an urban area up here in the Chicagoland area. So I'm kind of self-imprisoned here in my basement, but I do pass the time away by just looking into locations. I do my live Facebook videos every day at 4 o'clock Central Time, and I get people from all across the country. Have a gentleman that tunes in every day from the UK. It's at 10 o'clock at night over there. So me and him have been corresponding a lot, and he's been sending me a lot of great information about ghost stories out there, and some interactions that he had with some early ghost hunters, Peter Underwood and others, that he's been trying to archive his material out there. So I got plenty of things to keep me busy.
Okay, cool. Yeah, like you mentioned, we're more of a remote area down here, so we're kind of fortunate in that aspect. We can go out and investigate some of these more outdoor locations while the quarantine's going on. You guys up there, it's not good. So, but yeah, I appreciate you being on the show tonight, and I'm sure the fans are going to have a lot of questions for you. One of them are saying, can you increase your volume? I don't know if they can maybe talk a little louder, Dale. I don't know. One of them said your volume's a little low, but so my first question for you is, so what sparked your interest in the paranormal, Dale, and what kind of got you into all this in the first place?
Well, I guess I can kind of blame all this spooky business on my parents, my grandparents, who often told me ghost stories when I was a youngster. I know a lot of people in the paranormal, they get involved in the paranormal because they may have had an experience when they were growing up in childhood or something, they may have lived in a haunted house or something of that nature. I had a very uneventful childhood. So unfortunately, nothing really unusual happened to me when I was growing up. I did have a kind of a spooky attic that I never wanted to go into, even in broad daylight. It kind of creeped me out. And I often had nightmares about that attic. I don't know why. It wasn't haunted or anything like that. But my mom and dad, they were dating back in the late 1930s and early 1940s, just before World War II began. And my dad was actually in the Merchant Marines, which is kind of a dangerous job back there in the Army. And when my mom and dad were dating, my dad would take my mom out to a movie, a dinner, a show, whatever the case may be. But always on the way back home, and my mom knew it. My mom knew what was coming. They would drive right around and around Resurrection Cemetery, looking for the ghost, because the stories were fresh. They were brand new. In fact, some of the stories started in the late 1930s. My dad was kind of the ghost hunter, if you will, out of our family. My mom was a little bit more skittish until later in life. And it wasn't enough for my dad just to hear the stories. He wanted to see for himself there was something out there. So that's where that kind of ghost hunting kind of rubbed off on me a little bit at that point. Also, when I grew up, I wanted to find out if these stories I had heard as a youngster were true stories, if they were just old wives' tales or urban legends. So I'd kind of searched out these locations and started to put together a group back in 1977, which is then called the Ghost Trackers Club, with a fellow investigator, Martin B. Ricardo. And I worked as a research assistant there for 5 years before, in 1982, we changed the name at that time to Ghost Research Society, which I think is more indicative of what we do, ghost research.
Right.
And I've been investigating with that name since 1982. So we've got to be at least surely one of the longest running groups in the Chicagoland area.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I think you're frozen up a little.
I get pop-up videos that pop up every now. Am I back now?
Yep, you're back now, Dale.
Yeah, I get these pop-up ads and pop-up videos, and I don't know how to disable them, unfortunately.
Oh, that's all right. Thought maybe I lost you.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, like I say, I consider you, one of the pioneers in the field of paranormal research. You've been doing it a lot longer than I have, and that's cool that that's how you got started and sparked your interest in it and everything. But so I mean, out of all your let's say out of all your cases that you've investigated, what's the probably top 5 places that you would say you consider to be haunted or the most paranormally active in your area or anywhere? It doesn't have to be in your area.
Well, if you talk about locations that are in my area, obviously, and you've been there yourself, you came down Bachelor's Grove Cemetery. Bachelor's Grove is probably, in my opinion, one of the most haunted locations, surely the most haunted cemetery I've ever investigated. And that's saying a lot, because there's a lot of cemeteries I've investigated, even with you guys, like Hatchet Man and those places that are creepy as hell.
Sure.
But I mean, Bachelor's Grove has always been, it was one of the first, besides Resurrection Cemetery. Resurrection Cemetery was the first ghost story I was told as a youngster. But Bachelor's Grove was the very first location I actually did research on and to try to investigate, go out there back as early as 1975 and 76, when I used to be able to drive all the way back there. And now you have to park across the street and walk down there. So surely Bachelor's Grove would be probably one of the most haunted. If you kind of expanded that beyond the Chicagoland area in Illinois, I mean, places like Gettysburg definitely is on my list. I've been out there about half a dozen times, and hopefully we'll be able to do this trip later on in August that we're planning on doing. Gettysburg is one place we've had real good success there in the past. Another location called Old South Pittsburgh Hospital, which again, another trip we're planning on doing this year. Hopefully we can be able to do it down in South Pittsburgh, Tennessee. But another location that we had a chance to investigate a couple of times that we had just an amazing amount of evidence. I don't know if too many people have actually investigated, called Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum.
Oh yeah.
Weston State Hospital in Weston, West Virginia. I mean, that place is just awesome. It's 256,000 square feet. It's the largest stonemason building in the world next to the Kremlin. So it's just
cool.
awesome.
Yeah.
And the very first time we were there, we were just videotaping the guide and trying to get the history, the hauntings, kind of walk through. And during our walkthrough, we heard and recorded 9 disembodied screams in the background. It was just amazing.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. Reading some questions here too. They're going back to some of the other places, but yeah, I'm excited for Gettysburg too, Dale.
I'm always excited to go back there.
Yeah, we're supposed to be going in August? You say, is that when we're going?
August, yeah, and going to Pennhurst too, which is another great place.
Yeah, so we got some really good investigations coming up this summer, guys. So you definitely want to stay tuned for that. But Jennifer, one of our listeners and viewers, says, "Have you ever heard of Resurrection Mary?" I believe we have.
Yeah, Resurrection Mary, like I said, it's considered Chicago's most famous ghost because more people have actually seen her and actually encountered her than any other ghost that I know of. Well, in the Chicagoland area, but probably in the United States and sometimes even internationally. I get calls and emails from people that are coming from different states and even foreign countries. That's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah. There you go, Dale. But yeah, that's the chair. I took a picture of that chair. That's the one she's supposed to sit in, guys. Isn't that correct, Dale?
There you go. So, I mean, it's just crazy because, people will call me even from foreign countries and they'll say, oh, I've heard about Resurrection Mary, give me directions. So it's a very, very well-known story. It's internationally known, and there's been fewer and far, the sightings have been few and far between in recent years, unfortunately, but occasionally people still do come across her and see her hitchhiking down Archer Avenue.
Yeah, that's a cool story. I'm gonna pop up another picture real quick from when we were there. Here's a picture of the fence I took. Now, you want to explain to them what happened to this fence and the handprints that used to be in there?
Yeah, this happened in August 1976. A man traveling past the cemetery saw what appeared to be a girl locked in the cemetery after hours. This was about 10 o'clock in the evening. He continued on to the Justice Police Department. If you remember, it's not that far down the road. It's only maybe a couple of blocks.
Sure.
At about 10:30, Patrolman Pat Homa from the Justice Police came out and began shining his spotlight through the gates, calling on his loudspeaker for somebody who he thought was a real person who may have simply got locked in, which happens all the time. It's a big, large cemetery. And sometimes people walk and they don't drive their cars. So when the security is kind of clearing, you're looking for cars and not bodies, really. I mean, by real bodies, I mean live bodies, that is. And so sometimes people do get locked in, and he couldn't find anybody. And then he looked and he kept shining his spotlight around, and he said that several of the bars were pulled apart and bent. There was scorch marks on the bars and the impressions of what appeared to be fingerprints and skin texture, as though somebody had seared their handprints into the bars. Now, to this day, nobody knows how that happened. I have some things that I'm going to be posting up here on Facebook in the upcoming weeks here that actually shows the cemetery trying to explain it away as a front-led loader truck doing some sewer work that it backed into the bars and trying to straighten the bars. And it just doesn't hold any water because the truck backing in doesn't push bars in and also pull bars out.
Sure.
The original marks were not blowtorch marks, and an asbestos glove, which they said it was helped to straighten the bars. You can't leave behind fingerprints from an asbestos glove, and so it just doesn't hold up. But they continued to deny the story, and just recently, in 2019, I think you guys came out there, and one of the bars was missing.
Yeah,
which was amazing, and I still don't know what the circumstances behind that is. I hope they didn't just throw that bar out because I would have bought that bar.
Yeah, no joke.
Those are the original bars that were in there from 1976, when those even before. So unless it got to the point where they had to take it out and weld it back in or something like that, I'm not sure. But I'm going to take a trip down there one of these days here and see if I can identify it, because I have pictures and I have video. I actually have a 8mm movie that somebody shot in 1976. So I'll know if it's a new bar or if it's the original.
That's cool. Yeah, that's a pretty cool story. I really enjoyed that cemetery. We went to Bachelor's Grove when we were there. We investigated Mount Carmel Cemetery where Al Capone's buried. And that was a pretty neat location too. So I really enjoyed that one. That cemetery is beautiful. I mean, they've got big, tombstones in there, like just beautiful stones in that cemetery. So.
Yeah, so it's basically an Italian Catholic cemetery. So a lot of the Italians back then were pretty well to do, and especially the gangsters, as you know, they got these large marble monuments, and even though they did a lot of bad things during their life, they always wanted to be very close to piety. So they're very close to the Cardinals Chapel up there, people that were gunned down during the St. Valentine's Day Massacre or during the gang wars in the 1920s. And many of those people are buried there, including Al Capone, Frank Nitti, and we even investigated Frank Nitti's location. Where
that's really interesting. We got some activity there.
Yeah.
Didn't you say that's the first time a real good investigation had been done at that exact location, or?
That's the first time. That's the first time anybody has done an investigation there. So we were the first.
Cool. Yeah, I was pretty excited about that. We actually picked up some legitimate stuff on the Phasma box, I believe, and we got some pretty intelligent responses.
Absolutely.
At that location.
It would have been neat if we could have kind of traced his footsteps from where he left from. I think I drove you guys past his actual house on the other side. It would have been nice if we could have maybe got into the house. That would have been even better, I think, and kind of retraced his steps, like the day he was going to do that, blow his brains out. And
sure,
who knows what we would have gotten along the way, because people that are often not in their right mind, either they're intoxicated or mentally impaired, they very often make very good ghosts.
Yeah,
they realize that they passed on.
I believe I've got that picture you showed me. Do you mind if I show the picture of
Sure.
the crime scene photograph?
Oh, absolutely. Go right ahead.
Okay, just warning everybody out there, this is a kind of a graphic picture. So if you get kind of offended by this, definitely just turn your screen off for a minute. But this is a graphic, it's an actual crime scene photograph. So this is what we're talking about here, I believe. That's the correct photo, isn't it, Dale?
Yes, that's Frank Nitti, basically kind of a trench coat, slacks. He had a hat on his head, and the fence that you're actually seeing is a fence to keep people away from the train tracks, because there was a bunch of small factories and so forth located along there. And the story was that he was walking down the train tracks, and he went to put the gun up to his head. This is a true story. He went to put the gun up to his head, fired, and he missed the first time.
Oh, wow.
About that time, a train was coming down, and they heard that, and he blinked off a couple of shots in their direction, and of course they ducked for cover, and then he put the gun up to his head the second time. That's probably the alcohol too, and then made a fatal shot in his head one time. I don't know what size caliber. I'd have to look it up, but most likely a 38 or something like that, which will do some damage at close range.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I was just impressed by the activity we did pick up at that location, and I think that was our most active location when we we did Bachelor's Grove, we did Resurrection Cemetery, stopped by there, we did Mount Carmel Cemetery, a couple other places, and yeah, I think we got a lot of activity at that location where that took place.
Well, don't forget the not so much ghostly activity, but the other activity we had over there at German Church Road.
Yeah, that was some really fun times. Yeah, we're sitting here and the cops show up. This is a pretty funny story, guys. Me and Dale and Dickerson are down by the bridge, and where we're trying to get some paranormal activity. We've got our equipment set up down there, some recorders, and Courtney Mendenhall and Courtney Bowen, they were both back in the van. And we look over and the police show up. So the cops are over there and they're knocking on the van. And Bowen and Courtney's in there. I guess Bowen told the other Courtney, she's like, Jason, quit knocking on the doors. Quit playing like you're a cop or something. She didn't think it was the real police. So they're not letting them into the van. So they're like getting ready to get arrested here, like in the Chicago area. We're like from down south here, it's like, and finally another cop comes. I went over there and started talking to him. They started questioning what we were doing. And I told them, hey, we were down. We're just doing a paranormal investigation down there. They ran my driver's license and all that. It was a pretty interesting time. And of course, they kind of laughed, and it was all right, once they found out what was going on. But we're in a big residential area and had the van parked, kind of parked in a little, I don't know what you'd call it, circle drive there. And they kind of.
I think what really kind of tipped off what was going on, because that's a very kind of eclectic little neighborhood, and that's in Burr Ridge, and that's very high rent district over there. People are very, very rich. So when you see a kind of a strange van pulled up, not in front of their house, but across the street there, and they're seeing people pile out of there. They don't know what the heck's going on, so they call the police, and then the police come up to us, and he pulls right up to us, and he was nice. They were nice as pie. The cop says, he didn't ask me. He said, "What are you guys doing? Ghost hunting?" I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Oh, okay." And then I just had a little conversation with him, and I said, "Oh, you're out here a lot during the night. You ever see anything?" He goes, "No." And that's when he pulled away.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. Yeah, we had a good time up there. I really enjoyed it. But yeah, we're hoping to come back. I definitely want to hit Bachelor's Grove again. Do another investigation there.
I got so many places that you guys could actually investigate at night in downtown Chicago, which is very safe neighborhoods, by the way, in downtown Chicago, where the Fort Dearborn massacre occurred and places like that. So there's a lot of bloodshed out there. And I wouldn't mind going out there and trying to do something again at the German Church Road, and this time maybe finding a better place to park. Maybe walk a couple blocks down and just park a van up the street a little bit in a public parking area, and then kind of walk back, because I think that area has never really been investigated. We were the first ones actually there to do a real investigation. I was there before when we were actually walking with members of our group on the actual foundation of the house, the old Werner property. It used to be out there. But we didn't actually do an investigation, because you got to remember back then we didn't have the equipment we had now. I mean, all I had was a cassette tape recorder, a 35 millimeter camera, and my EMF meter was a compass. So basically,
that is old school.
Really investigate. Yeah. So I mean, that's really didn't really do an investigation. It was more like a collection of material and history, and taking pictures, and just our bodies kind of feeling if there was something there and so forth. So that was really the first time anybody's been out there to do an investigation. I would know, because I kind of keep tabs on all the other groups here in Chicago, and there really aren't that many in Chicago that do the kind of stuff that we do.
Yeah, you guys are very active up there. And I remember those old school days, we used to have the compasses, and an electromagnetic field, actually they say will spin a compass on its end, if you get into contact with some type of high EMF field. That's what we used back in the day for EMF meters, and and also the wind chimes, people would pour flour around doorways and see if footsteps would be in the flour, There's all kinds of old school techniques before we had all this modern day equipment.
When we would investigate homes, for instance, inside homes, what we would do sometimes, if there were reports of doors opening, we would put a piece of tape across the door, and we put maybe a thin filament or like a hair or something to see if it had been broken, or maybe even strings on the doorknobs to see if they were broken. Things of that nature. Very, very old school stuff, because at that time we didn't really have anything, so we had to kind of improvise.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, ghost hunting and paranormal equipment has, really came a long way, in the paranormal research field. I mean, we got there's all kinds of new equipment coming out, and being invented daily. It seems like, it seems like somebody's putting out some new equipment somewhere. It's like, from, the new SLS cameras to the EDI meters they're coming out with, and the new G2 laser grid. I know you got one of those. You're eager to try out. Yeah. Have you tried it out, by the way, yet?
No, I just basically experimented with it down here. I mean, again, if this continues much longer, I'm going to, invite a couple of my members just to come in separate cars, and we're going to go out in the middle of nowhere somewhere and do some sort of investigation. I want to try something out. But you got to remember too, like, when the paranormal was just kind of starting. I mean, as far as actually investigating with equipment, I mean, there was really nothing out there, and then you had to later on kind of use things that were really meant for other purposes, like for instance, K2 meters. But their K2 meters were not really ghost hunting tools. They were out there to determine whether or not they had high EMFs in homes that were dangerous to you and to the environment, because very high EMFs can cause skin irritations, hallucinations, headaches, all types of problems with the body. And so that's what they were used for. So early ghost research teams, like myself and others, kind of adapted those to possibly be used for paranormal equipment, because the idea that that spirits have some form of energy, and if they come in contact or come close to these meters, they might cause them to fluctuate or deviate from what's normal background EMF. So that's how we kind of used those at first. But then it got to the point much later, like after the movie Ghostbusters, especially in 1984, that a lot of places were starting to devise equipment that was specifically designed for ghost research, like digital dowsing, like Ghost Stop, all different types of. You go on the internet now and you can find a half a dozen or more websites that sell paranormal equipment, and individuals that actually build the stuff now, which is really great, because it's the stuff that you're using now that you purchase from that places, for the most part, is used only for one purpose, and that's out for ghost research and nothing else.
Right. I remember back in like 1998, this is before any of this new technology came out. Well, I had a non-contact laser thermometer, which I'm not a big fan of, because people don't understand that measures surface temperature, not what's between that. Between that gun, people think they're picking up a ghost or spirit in between a surface object. If it doesn't have mass, it's not going to register onto that device. So, people misuse those. But I had a non-contact thermometer out in a cemetery back in 98, and I was moving it up and down, and the laser was going across there. And I wish I would have patented the idea back then, because, I seen something go through my laser. The laser became visible. And back in the day, nobody had ever talked about lasers that I knew of, in paranormal activity. And I went on a couple radio shows, the Jeff Rent Show, and a couple other radio shows with Dave and Sharon from the International Ghost Hunter Society. And I told them how I'd figured out that lasers could detect paranormal activity, and everybody thought I was crazy. And well, now you got the G2 laser grid out, and all that stuff. So it's way back in the day, I figured out that these lasers were picking up something going through them. And I just wish I would have, if I would have put a patent on it back then, I'd been a millionaire. Because I wrote a bit article about it and put it on. It's just like, I don't know. I was crazy. I was young back then, didn't think anything about it. Now, everybody's getting rich off that stuff. So, but
like anything. I mean, when I was starting out, or very early with some of the equipment that I purchased, like I used that non-contact thermometer gun, and I used it the wrong way initially, because that's I didn't know any better, and I learned from my mistakes. Nobody's infallible. I mean, everybody will learn from their mistakes. But the thing is, as long as you don't repeat your mistakes, you tell people that this is the proper way of using it. Some of the TV shows on TV, they still use the stuff incorrectly. I started using, like back in 1997 or 1998, I believe, is about when the night shot cameras first started flooding the market. First thing I saw was orbs. Orbs all over the place. And right away, not knowing any better, because this is brand new technology, I thought, hey, they got to be something paranormal. But now we know better. So again, we kind of learn from our mistakes. Now, when we see something like that, like when we see an orb, we record an orb, we pretty much dismiss it unless, number one, we can see the orb maybe with our visual eye, or in some cases, I've actually come across orbs that are self-illuminating, that when they're seen in the actual environment, they're actually illuminating part of the environment. Now, those are not just dust particles, they're something else.
Right. Yeah, that's what I try to tell people. 98% of all orbs are dust particles, and exactly what you said. If you see something that self-illuminates in the darkness and has intelligence, so that's a different, that could be a different story. That could be going into the ghost light type phenomena, or, ball lightning, even weather phenomena. But most, everything that you see are dust particles, when they show those orbs. Another thing that gets me are the people that post. I'm real strict about this on the ghost photography part, is we will not take any pictures that came from reflective surfaces, whether it be windows, a reflective tombstone, a china cabinet, something like that. If they took it into a reflective surface, I automatically throw it out, just because of matrixing and pareidolia that can be caused with flash reflection and glass. So I'm big into that too. When I go on the sites, I see a lot of people posting pictures in windows. That's kind of one of my pet peeves. But I have seen some legitimate ones. Actually, I think you have one or I don't know who took it, of the dog and the lady in the window or something.
Right.
That's kind of a weird picture.
The other one of the old lady kind of watching over from the people working on the house, and you see this old lady in the window. I mean, that's not matrixing. That's not reflection. That's not
right.
The house. That's
sure.
kind of unusual. Now, I always tell people when they're photographing, for instance, there's a very famous story in St. Francisville, Louisiana, at the Myrtles plantation. There was a mirror in the foyer that's supposed to be a haunted mirror. And when the guides come through there, they always tell everybody, well, you need to take a picture of this, because so many people in the past have gotten ghost images in this mirror. And I don't know how many, I must have at least 15 pictures that people have sent me throughout the years. And that's only the people that actually found out about me, that have taken pictures of that mirror, and they've gotten some strange stuff. Now, because those mirrors back then, the glass is not smooth like it is. It's kind of wavy. It's not a perfected surface. And then you're saying that the matrixing and pareidolia, coupled with the flash glare that comes off that thing,
right?
It's just crazy. I get images that people send me of not only of mirrors but reflective surfaces. Can be glass and just windows. It can be the windshield, or even highly reflective tile, or a paneling. And sometimes, if you're taking with a flash, you get that flash bounce. And the unusual thing about your reflective surfaces, that they don't always reflect directly back at the photographer, because of the way the surface might be imperfect. It might reflect. You might actually have photographed something that's not in your line of sight. It might be something off to your left, off to your right, behind you, that you don't even see at the time, and all of a sudden it appears on there. So people jump to the conclusion that it goes.
Yeah. There's a lot of photographic evidence out there that's like I call false paranormal anomalies. People are posting a lot of false pictures. It's just crazy to go in these groups and look at all the crazy stuff people are posting and claiming it to be some type of paranormal activity. And I try to correct them on some of those groups. Say, hey, it's caused by this or that. They get mad at me. They want it to be a ghost.
Yeah. I've always said, and I've been doing examination on photographs for probably 25, 30 years now. And I got to the point where I had to post it on my website that, number one, I would not accept any photographs taken with digital cameras that have orbs. I just won't. Okay. Yeah. For the most part, because there's so many explanations. It's not just dust particles. It can be water droplets. It can be bugs or insects. It can be imperfections in the digital technology. It can be like a random pixelization of the image and so forth. I may even have to get to the point where I'm going to have to start telling people to stop sending me pictures of mirrors and photograph in reflective surfaces, because I get so many of that.
Yeah.
But it gets to the point that I had to post it on my website that you're sending me pictures. Remember, you're asking for my opinion. So if you get mad about my opinion, remember, it's just my opinion. I mean, I could be wrong. Don't start swearing and cussing at me, but people do. They get their bubble bursted. And right away they say, "Oh, I showed it to all my friends and all my relatives, and everybody sees the ghost, and you can't see it. What's wrong with you?"
Yeah, and the colors. I always get like, "Oh, it's a purple collar or something, or it's a different color the orb is, and that means it's mad." And all this is just crazy stuff, and a lot of that's caused by whatever is actually in the atmosphere itself. When that flash bounces off that particle, whether it be pollen, whether it be a dust particle or whatever it is, it reflects that back into the lens, just picking it up as different colors sometimes. And people ask, well, why they get that purple color. Some people were asking me about that. Well, some of your older cameras, some of your cameras today have what's called a magnesium fluoride coating on the lens of the camera. So that actually causes a purple color when it comes and enters back into the camera lens because of that coating on the camera lens. So that's what causes some of your coloration if you get like a purple or a blue color and they think it's some type of spirit orb.
Yeah, and that can even happen too using some of the full spectrum cameras. As you know, the full spectrum cameras, they have kind of a pinkish glow already.
Sure.
When you get the picture. So I mean, if you get something else that comes in between you and the picture subject of the picture, that can cause differences in color. The two most often ones we seem to get is red and green, and right away I think red and green. Well, I think of stoplights,
right?
Because you got red and green, or red tail lights of a car. And usually I ask people, can you show me pictures of the area where you were at, like what was behind you? And 9 times out of 10, there's usually either a road going past, or if there's a stoplight right at the corner, and then you get the red and the green. And it's not because the red means that the ghost is angry, and the green means the ghost is jealous.
Yeah. Another weird thing we discovered way back in the day, there are actually I don't know what the specific name for them are, but they're a type of spider in our area. There's also glowworms. Glowworms are real. People think glowworms are these imaginary things, but there really are. There is a worm that will glow on the ground, and there's a spider that if you take a picture, their eyes actually reflect kind of like animal eyes, and we had picked them up on the ground, went out there, and it's just a spider in the grass. Cobwebs, those are really bad. People get cobwebs, dangling in front of their camera, or they'll take a picture of a cobweb and think, oh, it's some type of weird vortex or something. So, I mean, there's just a lot of stuff out there that causes false anomalies on film. Just people aren't aware of because they're not out there every night like we are taking pictures of weird stuff. So.
I mean, and people might be on the middle of the cemetery in the middle of the night. So it's a very breezy day, and then they get some sort of weird, I call it kind of an obstruction. And it may simply be that somebody's got long hair and their hair blew right in the way of the camera lens at the time. And right away they say, well, it's white. It's got to be like a vortex. I say, well, no, but actually the reason it's white because it's the closest thing to your flash. So the flash is going off that obstruction, whether it be your finger, your hair, a piece of clothing, fibrous material in the air. And the closest thing to that is going to create that the flash is going to bounce off that and over bleach that rather than the background, and that's why it looks like that way. And it's not a vortex, or it's not interdimensional portal or anything like that. Sure.
Go back through the questions here. This is kind of getting back off this subject and on to some of the places you've investigated. Got a question from Robley Eagleton here, and I don't know what she's talking about. You may, Dale. She says the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire site. Has Dale ever investigated there?
The Triangle what?
Shirtwaist Factory? I'm not familiar with that.
Is that in the Chicagoland area?
I mean, let me ask.
I've not heard of it. I mean, I
haven't either.
I mean, I will say that there are certain areas in the Chicagoland area that are in the shapes of triangles. The Resurrection Triangle being one. St. James Sag is in a triangle. The area, I don't know if I showed it to you. I probably did. Next to Bethania Cemetery, where that man used to run out, covered with blood. And that's in a perfect shape of a triangle. And those are perfect shaped triangles. If you look from the air, if you have say a drone up in the air, if you're looking through, say, a satellite image, and a lot of those places are triangles. And we know that places that are in triangles very often are paranormally active, like the Bermuda Triangle, the Great Lakes Triangle, the Devil's Triangle. Here in this case, we got the Resurrection Triangle, the St. James Triangle, what locals have named it.
Okay, she's answering back here. Says, yes, hundreds of women trapped in a sewing factory. No idea. It's in the Chicago area, Robley?
I'm just wondering if that has something to do with, there was a story relating to Herman Mudgett, the mass murderer in Chicago during the Columbian Exposition, the murder castle. I don't know if I took you guys past that. but there was a factory that was associated with him, and I'm just wondering if that's what she's talking about.
Yeah, she says it is in Chicago.
Yeah, that would be in Chicago, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah. Becky, I guess, has heard about it too. It's on my team member. She said, yeah, the factory burnt, killing many of the workers, mostly women.
Well, I'd be interested if they want to send me that information and I can look into it a little bit more. Maybe after the show or something, send me an email or something to this feed where I can check it out, because it doesn't sound familiar, but this is very often where I get new leads from people that I have heard something that maybe I haven't. I don't know every single place in Chicago. And,
sure.
Sometimes people will come across when I'm doing presentations or podcast or webcast interviews, and people ask me questions, and I don't know what they're talking about. So
sure. I'm gonna tell you. I'll tell your website real quick and have them get on there and send you an email or something here. So ghostresearch.org, guys, check that out. We're interviewing Dale Kazmarek tonight. You can visit his website there. And yeah, if you know of any areas in the Chicago area that maybe he hasn't heard about, send him some information and he'll go check it out. So
yeah, my email is very simple. It's just Dale@ghostresearch.org. DALE at ghostresearch.org. So I can send that to me right today.
Dale@ghostresearch.org. So yeah, definitely send him an email, guys, with that information. But yeah, that's pretty interesting. And that's crazy because I'm always finding new places too. And with our Miriam investigation we done the other night, I don't know if you watched our haunted tour of Miriam we done. We went all around. Yeah, we went around Miriam, Indiana. Unfortunately, the first part of our video, we didn't realize it, but it was all messed up. And the first 45 minutes, the video quality was extremely bad. But we got flooded. I mean, flooded with emails, messages, phone calls about other locations in the area, people owning, locations around the Riverton area and Graysville. And so we've got so many investigations out of that video. It's pretty cool. And some of them I'd never heard of. There's a couple locations that a guy's going to take me to, an old school that his family owns, and some different areas. So that's pretty neat. I'm always looking for locals that know stuff, we don't. I've been researching that area for 15 years, and they were calling, telling me stuff I'd never heard of. So it's awesome, to get the people, talking to you. That's why I like to get out there and do these shows, do our live feeds, and interact with all our, the viewers and everything. Because the more people we get, that's more places we can get into, and, more history we can learn. And I'm all about learning, the history of all the locations, and it's just cool to hear all that.
Well, that's why I said earlier. I mean, that's usually the best source of information is through word of mouth. I'm doing either a presentation or a library lecture or a workshop or a conference. People will come up to me and they'll come to my table. They'll start talking, and I get a ton of information just that way alone. When I was, just to kind of give you an example, years ago, I was out investigating Joplin Spooklet. I know you guys are interested in going out there one year too.
Oh yeah,
that's something you can definitely do.
That's on my list. I haven't been there.
I was out there back in September of 1982, the first year we were there, right around Labor Day, and we were talking to people. I was actually going up to people, and either along the road or popping past some cars, or they were slowing down. They'd say, "You see it recently? Is it showing up?" And stuff like that. And then I say, "No, but have you been out here before?" "Oh yeah." "Do you mind if I tape record you and ask you some questions?" "Oh yeah, sure." And I just got, again, I was using cassette tape recorders, but I mean, I got cassettes, tons and tons of cassettes of just people telling me stories. And then that led to other things, including that cemetery in Southwest City, Missouri, where I think I told you, maybe I can tell the listeners very quickly about that apparition that was seen out there on a nightly basis. This woman, that was seen out there in Southwest City, Missouri, about an hour and a half away from Joplin or so. And they said, if you go out there at night, you'll see this woman walk the same route. She looks like she's kind of semi-transparent. We don't know who she is. And people used to go out there and just line up along the cemetery fence and look and see this woman walking, and she would disappear. So I went out there tried to interview some people. It was a very, very small town. So I couldn't actually find anybody who had actually seen her first person account. In fact, when I went to talk to the sheriff was out fishing. So you can kind of see what kind of a town this was. And so I went out there. It was about 8 o'clock, and I didn't see anything. But again, I got some pretty interesting infrared pictures that I shot up there. I actually saw a mist out there. I actually saw a mist form. Some parts you couldn't see through, other parts were more dense. It seemed to be moving around pretty quickly between me and a tree. It wasn't the proper temperature, humidity for ground fog. I don't smoke. It hadn't just rained. So I'm checking all the boxes of what this mist could be. So I snapped a couple of pictures. I took the camera away from my eye, and that mist was there for a second or two longer. And then it was like somebody had pulled the cork out of a bathtub. It just kind of spiraled down into the ground like a white tornado and was gone in an instant. And I'm sitting there like, what did I just see here? And of course, when I got the film back, because I didn't have digital, I had 35. I got the film back later. It didn't show. The mist did not show up on the 35 millimeter film, but it just kind of the whole area where this mist would have been is kind of bathed in an eerie blue light, which is very uncharacteristic for that type of film. So, did I see what everybody was seeing out there? I don't know, but it was something. It's just my personal experience. I don't have any real evidence to show and bring back that here I saw something, but it's just my experience.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I'm real excited to go out there. You told me we talked about that the other day on the phone, and I definitely want to check that place out because
there's so many places in and around that area that we could investigate that are right in Joplin that I've never actually investigated. And I don't think anybody actually has. I have a lot of connections with people in the Joplin Globe newspaper and the local NBC affiliate out there. That would maybe have more information about maybe recent sightings, other locations that are nearby that they probably would be able to turn us on to, just being out there to observe the light would be an amazing phenomenon. Because again, you got to remember back when I was there in 1982. I had an old full-size VHS camcorder. It wasn't even a night shot. It was what they call a zero lux camera, which means you have to have some sort of light, like a candle light or something. So when I was filming this light, all you kind of see is a black screen and a little pinpoint of light, even completely zoomed in. I didn't have the cameras I have now that are 4K, high resolution, all the illuminators, all the equipment, and so forth. So if we go back, we could probably, if the light's still there, which I don't see any reason why it isn't. It's been seen ever since about 1881. So there's a very good chance that we might be able to capture something and bring it back as evidence, and good evidence, I would think.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I would like, you talked about having the older technology. Now that we do have some of the new technology and stuff, we can take the drones out there, take some drones out there, fly it over there, see if we can figure out any type of light source from the air. And that'd be really cool too. But I'm really interested in I know you've wrote a book about spook lights, right? You have a book
Eliminating the Darkness, the Mystery of Spook Lights.
Yeah, I'm really interested in them too. We've got several places around this area with what I would consider to be a spook light phenomena. We've got a place called Spook Light Hill over by Brazil, Indiana.
Right.
And I don't know, did we take you there yet?
Yeah, you took us there, but I don't think we saw anything. I have come across about a half a dozen articles about that spook light. That next time we get together, I'll make sure I give them to you. I got them in a folder here that I came across when I was doing research in
awesome.
The Terre Haute Library. So I got some that came from a gentleman that did a lot of investigating and researching into what he calls folklore. Spook lights kind of fall in that folklore thing, even though a lot of times they're not folklore. They can be explainable. Sometimes they're not explainable. But I know that the one I think you showed us was kind of like a long road with maybe a couple of hills or so forth, way out in the middle of nowhere. Yeah. I know there's one down in Watseka, Illinois, that's been somewhat active. There's, of course, the very famous Moody Light in Rensselaer, Indiana. Farmer Moody has been seen out there. I mean, they're pretty much all over. I mean, I know I don't want to say the name, but I know you guys are out there to one weird place where you're seeing lights in the sky.
Oh yeah.
And you got that kind of weird formation of things, and
Yeah.
and that could be another spook light, an area too as well.
Sure. Yeah, that stuff's always interesting. Like I say, me and Dickerson actually, we tried. It was really cold, but we took a drone out to Spooklight Hill there in Brazil, Indiana, and we tried to debunk a lot of it because there is a crossroads that goes through there. You know, down at the bottom of the hill, there's a crossroad, and then it goes back up a hill. And you know, we're trying to make sure it's not car lights going through there and all that. And I have seen what I believe to be a couple things that I can't explain there that weren't, you know, your normal headlight color, you know, like red and, you know, clear color, more of like a fire color. And that, I don't know, just stuff I can't explain. But I'd say a lot of it can be debunked as cars going through that intersection and people seeing the taillights going through there. But definitely a neat place because it's been like a, you know, local hotspot for paranormal phenomena for a long time. You can find old photographs of like people sitting there in like the, you know, the 60s, 50s. I think I even seen one photograph. So it's pretty neat.
Yeah, that's the neat thing about spook light phenomena is that it's actually steeped very, very much in folklore. Because if you go by what the folklorists say, there was a couple of books written by a man named John Brunveld, I believe is his name. He was into folklore, legends, and things of that nature. And you know, spook lights and even cemetery ladies and hitchhiking ghosts, they all kind of fall into that kind of spook, folklore type of urban legend type stuff.
Sure.
But I mean, you know, they went on to say that you know, some of these lights have a natural explanation, and you know, the most often natural explanation, obviously, is car headlights and tail lights that are seen in the horizon. They're far enough away. They may, like you say, be crisscrossing roads. That's what I believe happens over at the Moody Light. You have a straight road going back, and you have a road that comes in an angle like this. So you see the car headlights for a while, and all of a sudden the car turns off, continues on the road, and the lights simply disappear.
Sure.
In other cases, I mean, we were only able to debunk really about 3 or 4 lights in my entire book. And I went to see the vast majority of them, except some of the ones in California I didn't quite make out. And I never made out to see the very famous Marfa lights in Marfa, Texas.
Oh, yeah.
But I've been out to see the Brown Mountain lights. I mean, we were out there 2 nights and I only saw like 1 light the whole time I was out there, which I was very disappointed. The Mako train station light, Bill Baldwin's light in Mako, the train tracks are not there, so the light's not seen anymore. I was out there with the Arkansas Gazette in Durden, Arkansas. I didn't see any lights when we were out there, but I had a camera on a tripod that was pitch dark. I was using very fast film, so it was completely dark. I just kind of left the shutter open for a while, and when I got the film back, there's lights that are zigzagging across, and they're these flashes, just basically just an open shutter. So yeah, there are a number of lights, but over and over again, Joplin is one area that seems to be producing these lights on a fairly regular basis. And there may be other things going on. In fact, a couple of years ago, I gave a presentation of what I call portal hauntings, which I believe is to be a portal site because it's not just, you know, supposedly these spook lights. There's been reports of strange cryptids. There's been reports of UFO activity, even poltergeist phenomena on occasion.
Yeah.
And we were in this one area. I'll never forget it. It was like simply walking into, I want to call it like a zone of fear. You kind of walk into this area and you get an anxiety attack. You just, ooh, like that. And you step back and you're fine. And you'll take a couple steps forward and you just get this all over again. And the meters didn't register it. There was no overhead lines or anything buried in the ground, anything like that. We did test. We talked to people that owned the property. But this was the area that we had the most unusual sighting. If I can got a few seconds, I'll tell you about it real quick.
Sure. Oh,
yeah. We were out there with 2 other people. We were using again. This is, you know, at the time state-of-the-art technology. But we had 10 by 50 binoculars. We were out there, and we saw this light. This light that we were seeing that evening, however, was not on the road. it was off the road, off to the left-hand side. And I was looking through the binoculars, and this light looked like it was next to a barn. I mean, it was so bright. I mean, I thought the barn was on fire. I mean, that's how bright this barn was.
Oh, wow.
Like,
That's
what?
awesome.
And it probably was, I would say, it's kind of hard to judge distance, but I would say maybe 200 yards away. So pretty close. So I'm looking through the binoculars, and what I'm seeing through the binoculars knocked my socks off, literally. I've never seen anything like this, and that's saying a lot. I literally saw a a diamond-shaped object that had a hollow center, that you could actually see trees and bushes through this hollow center.
Oh,
so
wow.
As you look through it, it was like you were almost looking into a doorway, something like that. And then Joplin is that Spook Light Road is like one hill after another. So it's kind of like, that's why sometimes the lights disappear, because they're going like behind a hill and they're coming back up on top of the hill and they're going back below the hill again. So as I'm watching this light, suddenly it drops down below the horizon. So immediately I asked two other people, without telling them what I had just seen, did you see that? What did you just see? They told me the same thing.
Really? Well, that's pretty cool.
So then we watched it. We put the binoculars back up, and as this thing went down below the horizon, this was the weirdest part. It kind of left behind a twinkling effect, like it was giving off some sort of phosphorescence, like the sky in the area was just kind of like twinkling and just kind of like fireflies, thousands of fireflies, but they weren't fireflies.
Yeah.
So then we're creeping up the hill, because this thing is, I want to get to the top of the hill so I can see this light. So at that time it was gravel, so we're kind of crunching the gravel. We're going real slow. We had our, no lights on the car. This is 3 o'clock in the morning. There's nobody on this rural road. Now I got to the top, almost got to the top of the hill. 50 yards from the top of this hill, this thing comes up over the hill, right in front of us, slowly, silently, is twinkling there for a little bit, goes back down below the horizon, again, leaves that phosphorescent twinkling effect. We got to the top of the hill maybe 20 seconds later, and that light was about 2 miles down the road. It had gotten from there to there, just like that.
Crazy. Yeah. There's a lot of things in this world, we can't explain. I mean, I know.
I will tell you this. I told this to a psychic that I had been working with at the time, Pat Schenberg. Very gifted psychic, and I've only worked with about 3 psychics in my entire 45 years in doing this, because unfortunately there are a lot of people that claim to be psychic who are not, and there are some that are charlatans. But this was I think this was one of the real deals. And when I told her this, she told me that, in her opinion, what I had told her is that we were all probably in danger, because basically this might have been a portal, an opening to the other side, another dimension.
Yeah, never thought about that.
So,
that could be. And,
so I mean, if you step through it and this interdimensional doorway closed, well, where do you go?
Yes, so you might have disappeared. That's kind of like the old. I don't know if you ever heard of the Philadelphia experiment. I'm sure you have. They introduced. Yeah, what happened to those guys? I still think that's what happened to them. They were messing with electromagnetic fields and all kinds of stuff. And from what I remember, didn't the ship disappear, and then half the people didn't come back? Half the people were sticking out of the ship, like you see feet, legs.
What they were trying to do was they were trying to selectively bend light so that the ship would become, in fact, invisible.
Yeah.
And that's sort of what, kind of a little bit what we do today with the stealth technology.
Sure.
We make these jets and these bombers so that they can appear almost invisible on radar. And this was back in the 1960s or something like that.
I think so.
Or even earlier.
Yeah.
And so they were trying to use some very heavy electromagnetic devices, and they're producing this stream of electromagnetic field, trying to selectively bend this light around this big battleship to make it appear invisible. And apparently there was some, as you said, people that never came back, and those that did come back, they suffered some sort of reaction to the experiment, and they were never right in some cases. It was really kind of a weird idea, really kind of state of the art for the 1960s.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the
Sure.
time you think of when Star Trek was on.
Oh yeah.
Star Trek,
Yeah.
basically, everybody thought that Star Trek was way ahead of their time,
Yeah.
But
They were messing with stuff.
they were messing with stuff they really didn't have any idea what they were messing with. It's sort of like when you drop
Exactly.
the first atomic bomb, you didn't quite know what they were doing. They would drop a bomb, and they would march soldiers into the atomic waste as the thing is still blowing up in the air, and to see what effect it has on troops. And of course, a lot of those people died within a few weeks or months afterwards.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy. So, yeah.
But yeah, the whole
Just don't
portal.
meet the mess.
Yeah, definitely. The whole portal haunting thing. We've investigated several locations that I truly believe to be some type of portal haunting or something beyond your normal haunting too. Like you're saying, there's residual intelligent type hauntings, and then you've got to classify some of these things as to what's causing all different types of activity, like you're saying, to happen there. And one of the places I've been researching, we've been researching big time into locations, which I know back in the day this didn't cause it, but locations now that sit by towers, radio towers, cell phone towers, that have big towers that's throwing off these fields. Can that help open up a portal or some type of dimensional shift or doorway into some of these cemeteries? And one of them that stands out in my mind extremely well, and I'm going to take you there. I don't think you've been there yet with me, is Williamsburg Hill up there. And we've investigated that location several times, and I would consider that to be a portal-like haunting. It's on top of the hill.
Like
you got a large tower. Kind of reminds me of the Bachelor Grove setup. There's a tower close to Bachelor's Grove too. And this thing's like right close to the cemetery. And it's up on a hill. The Native Americans warned the early settlers not to settle there in the first place. The town was originally known as Cold Springs, and then it became Williamsburg Hill. And there was a town there, and the railroad passed it by, so the town kind of dried up. But all of its residents are still buried, in Williamsburg Hill in the cemetery. And that's where there's a story where supposedly this girl went missing, and this is in more modern times. And the family was driving past the cemetery. She was missing for a long time. They start driving past the cemetery. They look up the lane, and they see their little girl coming down the lane of Williamsburg Hill Cemetery, which is it's known as Ridge Cemetery also. She's walking down the lane, and they go up there and they pick her up. They said, "Where you been? Where you been?" And she goes, "I've been with the people up there in the cemetery." And they go, "What are you talking about?" And this is like a little girl. And she says, "The people in the cemetery, they want me to stay there with them." And she described them as the people in the ground. And that's a pretty well-known account to that place too. And it's just like people have seen, they've seen UFOs there, they've seen cryptids, Bigfoot, strange monsters, like it's been reported at Bachelor's Grove. I know back in the day, somebody's seen a strange monster in Bachelor's Grove too. The disappearing houses, same thing with Williamsburg Hill area, just the whole connection of, could that be a portal? Could Bachelor's Grove be a portal? These places that have different types of paranormal phenomena going on.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me, earlier today, I was, not that long ago, actually, I was doing my live feed here from down here in my basement. And we were talking about equipment, but then we also got kind of going into, I always ask people what they want me to talk about. Send me an idea through the feed or through my email, and so maybe something in your area, your state that you want to talk about. Maybe we've already been there too. For
sure.
And we have this one gentleman that tunes in every day from. His name is Paul Adams from the UK, and we started talking about the Highgate vampire out there in England in this Highgate Cemetery. In fact, the western end is very, very decrepit, very literally just falling apart and everything. And there were reports, especially along in the 1960s, of people walking along this road called Swain's Lane, which kind of goes past the cemetery, and they would see several reports of people seeing bodies of people or spirits of people coming up out of their headstone. And not just
Oh, wow.
one, I mean several people. And when you said that earlier about the girl and the cemetery, people, it made me think about that for a second.
Yeah.
And uh, also these dark shapes. In one case, a shadow figure that was thought to be 6 or 7 feet tall, quite tall, that actually physically attacked somebody, threw this girl to the ground. She got some bruises and scrapes, and she tried to get up, pushed him back down again. About that time, a car started to come down the road, and the headlights, hit the girl, and the girl looks, and that figure is gone completely. And the funny part about where this happened, on both sides of the road, there's 12-foot walls.
Oh, wow.
So there's no place anybody could have disappeared through that quickly. And
That's hard to debunk.
yeah, it's hard to debunk. And there was a gentleman named David Ferrant, who just died this last year, I think. And he used to go out there because he believed that there were literally vampires buried in that cemetery, that people were coming out, and that's why reports of these figures or these apparitions coming out of their tombstones, their headstones, they thought they were simply vampires. So he was out there digging up bodies and staking people, actually driving stakes through their heart and everything like that. And obviously he got in some serious trouble for that, because he got arrested for grave desecration. And
Yeah.
I don't know where he got the idea from, maybe because of some of these reports. There's a very interesting area called a columbarium, which is I've never seen anything like this in all my travels. But basically, as you come up to it, you kind of look down from a ridge, and you see this circle of mausoleums in a complete circle, and kind of an inner circle of mausoleums. And you take the steps down, and then suddenly you're down on ground level, and you're looking back up the ridge. And it's around this columbarium is where they said a lot of these vampire reports came from. People seeing something slinking through the area from time to time.
Looking at questions here too.
Yeah, go right ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Got a question way back here from Karen Cat. She asked if you have ever investigated, and I believe you have, the old Joliet prison.
We were there last year, I believe it was. I was taking a senior tour out there it was actually my first time to go out there.
Okay.
And it was a really rainy, kind of crappy day. It was kind of drizzling. Everybody was wet and everything. I don't know if they specifically allow private investigations. I don't know if they had some public investigations there in the past, but nothing as far as private.
Okay.
And the other reason too that I might not even want to do that is because the area is just so terribly run down. It's not even safe inside. A lot of the buildings are leaking. So they took us in areas that were much safer. There were some areas roped off that were possibly in a state of collapse. So it's pretty run down, unfortunately.
Okay. Thank you. Another question. We kind of went into this earlier, but what was your favorite place to investigate? Michael wants to know. I guess just your favorite.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if it's around here, I mean, it would be, something like perhaps, Bachelor's Grove or maybe anything to do with, massive untimely death. And there are several places in Chicago, like the Fort Dearborn Massacre, the Eastland disaster that killed 844 people in 1915, the Iroquois Theater fire in 1903 that killed 620 people. Those are the kind of areas I like, and even things to do with the Great Chicago Fire. So we have this tour I do called the kind of a tragic events tour that kind of go on those locations. But if it's out of the state, as I mentioned, I could probably name a half a dozen places like Trans-Allegheny, Old South Pittsburgh Hospital, maybe the Thomas House in Red Bowling Springs, Tennessee. I mean, I had some interesting encounters in a cave called Leonard's Cave down there. I was actually poked in the back, and there was nobody behind me. Spun the camera around. Everybody was over to my left, and as I'm panning the camera around, I didn't think I caught anything until I went back later, and I could swear. I mean, it may be It could be pareidolia, could be a little bit of matrixing, but there looks like it's an apparition. And the stone's kind of going like this.
Oh, wow.
Kind of looking right at me. And I'm going, I mean, I didn't see it when I was panning through there. I mean, I've got night shot cameras and everything, but yeah, so there's a number of interesting places that I like to investigate and finding more and more. I mean, there's a number on my wish list still, including like, the Queen Mary, the Stanley Hotel. I'd love to go out and investigate the Custer's Last Stand, a Little Bighorn. I think that'd be a great place to go. And
see, I've been there. That was a pretty interesting spot. That it's, I didn't do a whole lot there, but I have investigated it. But yeah, we need to go out there. Probably that'd be a cool place for us to all take a road trip to.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cool areas or places we can investigate, like right around there. I got a question though. I don't think I've ever talked with you about this. You're talking about you thought you got poked in the back. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
What's your take on ghosts physically doing things to investigators? I see a lot of these groups, they run in, they get scared, they say they got scratches on their back. I mean, in my experience with all the investigations I've done, very seldom does anything ever physically make contact with the living. I've seen a lot of people report scratches, and even one of my team members one time, we were investigating an old it was like a poor farm, kind of like the Ashmore Estates, actually kind of a sister to the Ashmore Estates, looks just like it, and it's down south, but I don't want to tell the location of it.
Is that the one you took us to, or no?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So we pushed him. One of my team members had pushed him up into an attic area, and then he came back down and he had scratches on his back. So I think that my team member scratched him as he pushed him up. But he felt like his back was burning. He pulls his back up and there's scratches down. And I just kind of debunked it as, one of my team members scratched him, pushing him up into the attic area. But what's your take on, I guess, physically being touched or scratches, that type of stuff? Like the Sally House reports a lot of scratches,
Right. Yeah. Unfortunately, it's my personal opinion that, well, first of all, I've been doing this so long and investigated so many different locations. I mean, I've never come across too many people actually being physically attacked by anything. I think a lot of these things, unfortunately, you see on these reality TV shows is simply that, reality TV. It's just to make it more exciting. They say, come and scratch me, and then right away they get scratched or something. Or they fall down and they get pushed or something like that. Maybe it's their own clumsiness. Maybe it's something to boost the ratings or something. But when you get into private paranormal teams, like me and you or other teams going out there, it can be a lot of different things. I think number one, it could simply be that you may have actually scratched your back earlier, and it doesn't well up right away. I mean, it doesn't feel like it wells up, and then all of a sudden, during a particularly scary part of the building, all of a sudden you begin to feel burning, and then you begin to notice it at that time. And there are some people that can actually scratch themselves. I'm not going to go into who I think it is because I don't want to make any more enemies. But there are some people I think that can actually scratch themselves, and those welts don't literally show up for several minutes later. So they can be very conveniently kind of timed when those welts come up to a particularly scary part of the investigation or something. I also think sometimes it can be psychosomatic. It can be simply that somebody is doing something, with their own mind. We know that there's so much of our mind that we don't know. I mean,
which is paranormal itself.
Psychokinesis, exactly, and even setting fires and things of that nature. So I mean, if we can do all that and move stuff around, set fires, why can't we create scratches on ourselves? But again, of all the times I've been going out to do stuff, I mean, I can count that maybe on less than two hands, how many times that I've been, touched or in some way. I've never been scratched. Okay. I mean, I was poked in the back. Now the poked in the back thing is kind of an interesting story. If I can entertain you for just a second, that cave was actually a place where they used to hide moonshine and beer and everything because it maintained a constant temperature. And We know there was an Indian burial cave at one time, and if we ever go to the Thomas house, I can get permission to go in that cave again. It's not a problem. Great cave to investigate. The only cave I've investigated so far. And there were Indian remains found there, and there was a report, which we actually got the documentation, we got the newspaper article of somebody being killed in there by a county sheriff. So he was shot. So I assumed that maybe when I got poked in the back, was it, number one, was it a residual of that police officer saying, hey, get out, poking the gun in your back, or was it the guy who got shot who still claims that it's his own, poke himself, because it didn't feel like a finger. It felt like cold steel on my back. And that's why I spun around, because I thought somebody was playing a prank on me. Now, besides that, I mean, the only other things that have happened to me, I've had my hair brushed, I had my cheek touched very lightly. And then, of course, at Trans-Allegheny, you probably saw that when I had my butt grabbed in Trans-Allegheny. I think I might have told you that story.
Yeah, I think you did. Yeah.
Of, this female woman who didn't like anybody who was male, and I was the only male investigator in an area that she was at, and my whole hand and arm felt that it was literally on goosebumpy, and all the hairs were standing up. We took a picture of it, and then right after that, a cold hand literally grabbed my left butt cheek.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, most other people, like any of these TV shows, they would have been heading for the door. I was saying, hey, come on, bring it on. I want to see some more. And so, I mean, there have been a couple of interesting things that have happened to me, but I've never been scratched. I've never been physically attacked in any way, if you want to call it. I think what the spirits may be doing is just trying to reach out the best way they can to say, hey, we are here. It may not be a physical attack. It may not be a way to scare you or anything. It's just a way of that's their way of saying, hey, I'm here. Sometimes it may involve, unfortunately, scratches. But again, I don't like the scratch phenomenon. To me, it's way over publicized. We were investigating a place right here in Gary, Indiana, the Mercy St. Mary's Hospital, where all the Michael Jackson family was buried. I think I might have told you that story.
Yeah.
And I told everybody had walkie-talkies if they went around in groups, and I told them, I said, if anything happens, call us immediately. Let me know what's going on. And somebody had gotten scratched on their back in the day room. And I didn't find out until about an hour later. I go, well, why don't you call me? I said, well, I didn't have the walkie-talkie. So everybody was supposed to be in teams of two, so they didn't fall down the stairs. And she had a nice big welt on her back. But again, I don't know if she was by herself, if she rubbed against something, because again, depending on the sensitivity of one's skin, you can rub against something and it might appear for several minutes.
Right.
So, that's kind of my idea, my thoughts on these so-called paranormal attacks. I don't think it's really that the ghost is out there to drive you out, and I don't believe it's demons. I don't believe it's anything like that.
That was the next question.
Yeah, because I've never come across anything demonic,
Me either.
diabolical, satanic, or anything like that. Besides having some reports they have actually drove with other places of possible satanic worship. But I think part of the reason we don't come across, I'm not going to say that there isn't something like that. Okay. I mean, if there's a heaven, there may be a hell. If there are angels, there may be demons. The Bible talks about that. Religion talks about that. So I'm not going to dismiss it completely, but I will say that of all the places I've been to, I've never come across anything demonic. And I think that's partly because we, and particularly myself, we screen our cases very carefully.
Yeah.
I mean, we have them tell their whole story in their own words. And then I go back and kind of fill in the blanks by asking questions, especially questions that might lead me to believe, but kind of get an idea before we get involved of what we're getting involved with. Because I don't want to be suddenly or awkwardly surprised by something that we're not prepared for. And if I even think there's something that there is very negative or demonic, or even sometimes we walk into a bad neighborhood, I'd rather just turn it down and just, if it's demonic, I might say, for instance, why don't you talk to a priest or clergy and exhaust that avenue first.
Yeah.
Before you jump in with both feet, that it's got to be demonic. And then if you have to, contact somebody who's a demonologist and not a ghost hunter or a ghost researcher,
Yeah.
that's where you really want to go. There are people like John Zappis and other people that are very known for being demonologists. Ed and Lorraine Warren were demonologists.
Yeah.
And that's where their forte is. And that's really not my forte, is to get involved with something negative. And that's why maybe I've not come across anything demonic, nor do I wish to come anything like that.
Yeah. Now, see, I'm 100% on the same page as you are. Is like, there's no such thing. In my opinion, I have found no proof or evidence of any type of demonic or evil type spirit. Now, I consider them, but I'm kind of different in your opinion, where I don't take those cases. I actually try to take those cases. And there's been several cases of demonic type activity that I've investigated. I've investigated cases of possession, demonic possession, where they said that I would not last 10 minutes in the room with these people. And, from all the ones and cases that I've handled and I've done, I've come to the conclusion that most of the stuff that people consider to be demonic activity, unfortunately, is like a mental illness, some type of a mental, problem that we just, mental illness is, not very well taken care of nowadays. People they kind of ignore it. And I've also investigated a couple of cases where I believe that it was a sickness, like the process of the body getting sick. One guy had cancer. He was pretty much on his deathbed. They said he was being possessed. And I think it was the process of him dying and, starting to have some mental issues due to that. I don't think it was actually demon possession, but I've found no proof of evil or demonic stuff. We look at the ghosts and spirits as like people without bodies. It's like if you were it's a butthole in life, you're going to be one in death type of thing. It doesn't make them evil.
Sure.
Same way like suicide. Like people think, well, suicide places are evil. No, I mean, those people were depressed, they committed suicide. Still doesn't make the location evil. Just right. Like it's just like me and you, we're going to retain our personality or, how we were maybe in death, like we were in life. And, I've found no evidence myself of demons. And it's like everybody, all these new TV shows, everything's demonic. They're always getting attacked by demons. It's like,
well, there's some things about mental illness that we don't know about. There's a disease called Tourette's syndrome. Where basically it's a process of the mind where people will jerk uncontrollably and spit out words and stuff like that. And people see somebody like that, they might think that they're possessed, but really it's a problem with the mind. I mean, one of the reasons that I can see where you're coming from is trying to take on some of these cases, but one of the reasons that we kind of back off on cases like that and rather not get involved is because the last thing I want to do is bring something back to my house that might be, negative, demonic,
sure,
or have anybody else bring into my team that might come under possible attack of some kind. Because even though, if we're going into a private home, for instance, and we're called in by a family, I never tell the team what's going on.
Sure.
Because I want it to be more scientific, so they don't know anything about what goes on until they go through and they start going from room to room with the equipment. We sit down with the clients, so it would be I guess, not so nice of me to suddenly drop the ball on them and say, "Oh, by the way, this is a demonic haunting." And I don't know how many would probably run and hit the door about that time. Because, there were a couple of places that we wanted to go to do investigations, and a lot of my team backed up. One of them was it was in Cleveland, Ohio. It was a rectory. I can't think of the name right offhand. It might come to me. But a lot of demonic stuff that was apparently happening there, because a lot of the demonic stuff came from television and these TV shows. You don't know how much they're actually telling the truth and
sure.
But that's one of the reasons we don't want to get involved with that kind of stuff, just because of the possible repercussions of being in a location like that. And
I completely understand and respect you for that. Yeah. I mean, definitely take care of yourself and your team. It's like, we investigated, I hate to bring this up, I won't talk about it long, but we investigated a place called Willow Sweep. I'm sure you all know. And it's supposed to be the most evil and haunted house in North America. And the History Channel had a little thing on it proclaiming it was the most evil and haunted house in North America. We debunked a lot of the activity that they experience in there, and we don't believe it to be evil or demonic at all. And there's just a lot of hype to some of these places. People want to claim they're evil and they're demonic to sell a location. It's all about publicity and the Hollywood effect. There's a big Hollywood effect going on in paranormal research right now. For some reason, people want to buy up these old houses. They want to claim they're haunted, and so they get all this money, people paying for people to come in, and it's just it's basically a hoax, and that's what I call the Hollywood effect in ghost hunting. It's like they'll even stage items in the house, to make it appear more creepy or haunted, or it's crazy.
I mean that's just you got to watch out for that kind of stuff. I will say though, at least that in when we were investigating locations, as long as I've been investigating cases, I've yet to have actually somebody to try to fake something or pull the wool over our eyes. In other words, they didn't invite us to our home and then have speakers there or be pulling strings or something like that to make things fall off shelves or anything. So I'm pretty lucky with that. I will say though, however, that we have investigated quite a number of cases that we found natural explanations for.
Sure.
One kind of a humorous story, but kind of a short story. We were investigating a place in the northern suburbs here. I won't tell you exactly where, just for confidentiality. But it was an elderly woman. She was in her 80s, and she kept hearing this noise every day, and for going on, kind of a chirping sound. She thought it was a bird that got into the house. So she wasn't really sure, but she right away jumped to the conclusion that her house was haunted. Mm-hmm. So we went out there, myself and my psychic and a couple of people from the team, and we were kind of talking to her, and all of a sudden we heard that chirp at the same time she heard it. But there it is. And I immediately knew what it was. I went over to the area, and it was a smoke detector where the battery was going low, and you hear that chirp from the battery going low. So basically, I said, okay, I'm going to take care of you here. So I replaced the battery, and I basically exorcised the ghost. He was gone.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just some things that can be that simple, but unfortunately, she wasn't. She never did anything like that. If she had any issues or things that needed to be replaced, she called her son. Her son would come over, and I guess she never called. She never thought to call him over. She just jumped to the conclusion it was the ghost and called us out, and we figured out what it was in about 10 minutes.
Oh, sure. Yeah, see, we've had a couple cases where people tried to pull the wool over our eyes, and I don't know. One of our cases was in Vincennes, Indiana. They called us in to investigate this house, and there was this. They had a couple kids that were about 14, 15 years old, and they just the activity only happened when the kids were there, which was kind of weird. They were telling their mom they were seeing this stuff, hearing this stuff. Well, eventually, during the course of our investigation, I'll try to make this short. A toaster went off in the kitchen, like it popped up by itself, like somebody pulled it down, popped it up, which is pretty easy for somebody to go by. Well, one of the 14-year-old had just went through there. So I immediately started to suspect, well, he'd done that, I took our thermal imaging camera in there, and lo and behold, we debunked the case with a thermal imaging camera because there was a handprint where he had touched the toaster, and put his hand on there and pulled that down. They tried to claim that he didn't do it as he went through there, but thermal imaging technology indicated otherwise. So, we kind of told the mother, we think, hey, I think your kids are kind of pulling a little prank on you here. I think we're going to back out. I think we pretty much, debunked this. We tried to get out as swiftly as possible, but yeah, we've ran into a few cases like that, but it's pretty crazy anymore. Got some more questions though.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Let me see here. One of them, Paula wants to know, Dale, what your favorite piece of equipment is and why.
Well, I can't really say I have a favorite piece for for all pieces, but I'll say that, for instance, my favorite EMF device has got to be the tri-field natural EM meter.
Yeah.
Because that does not give false readings. It does not pick up AC fields inside homes, not like K2s or Mel meters or cell sensors or ELF meters or whatever that often pick up a lot of abnormalities, which are perfectly explainable. I also do enjoy my SLS camera a lot. The technology of being able to possibly identify something that's actually mapped out with the infrared dots, similar to a laser grid, but actually giving the configuration of what this is in a stick figure, and sometimes actually showing what this person's doing, is if it's hitting you, if it's crawling on the walls, and so many good examples of things that we picked up that other teams also picked up with that same camera. So that's always been one of my favorites.
For sure.
Of course, I'm going to have some other favorites coming up here when I start working with some of this new equipment, which I haven't had a chance to really debut. But again, one of my favorite devices still for communication, in my opinion, right now is probably the Phasma box, because the Phasma box, we've just gotten some really amazing catches on the EVPs with that. Direct responses and often full sentences to what we just asked.
Yeah. One of the best ones I got on the Phasma box so far was an EVP, or well, I guess you call it a voice, but came over the Phasma box and said that I can't breathe and I died in the living room. A whole sentence. Oh, wow. And that was just amazing. And that's one of the weirdest things I've seen come over yet. But yeah, we're still doing research, and Dale introduced me to the Phasma box. I had no clue, and Dale said, he was using this Phasma box. I had no clue what it was. He showed me, and I eventually, downloaded the program, put it on my computer and stuff, got it going. And yeah, we've done some crazy experiments with it. And I try to debunk all this new stuff. Is it something they program into it? And like we talked about, we've turned the speaker off to our computer to make sure it's not hearing what we're saying. Just all kinds of stuff. It's just it's pretty weird. I don't know, what's going on, but.
Well, the other one that I greatly admired too, and I think I also kind of made you a little bit of a believer on, is the Obelisk.
Oh yeah,
because, if you remember when we went to the Masonic Lodge at Oblong, and we were upstairs, and I don't remember all the words that you said, but you said a lot of Masonic words were coming through there, and that's pretty weird, being that you're in a former Masonic lodge and you're asking questions, you're getting Masonic words coming through there. Yeah,
I agree. Yeah, I was on the fence about the Obelisk until that day too. Yeah, and you kind of proved me wrong on that one too. Yeah, because we got a lot of cool words coming through, and then the bridge too. Remember, we got couch come across the Obelisk at that bridge. Right.
Yeah, we were at Stone Quarry Bridge.
Stone Quarry. Yeah, Stone Quarry Bridge.
And we were sitting up on the middle of the bridge, and I think it was broad daylight when we were there, I believe.
It was, yeah.
And then as we were coming back, I still had the Obelisk going, and I know for a fact that if you didn't look when we were going there, but as we're coming back, you always say that, well, some people always dump couches over the bridge here.
Yeah.
And I go, okay. And we look over, there's a bridge, and there's couch, and then the Obelisk says couch.
Yeah.
At the same time.
Yeah,
so that's pretty. That's pretty weird. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm right on board with you on the tri-field natural meter. That's one of my favorite EMF meters, and the new EDI meter they got out. We've been using those too, because it'll save the data onto an SD card. We can use it on a program, a logging program on our computer. It'll bring up and see if we get any correlations in temperature drop and EMF spikes, air pressure, humidity, or it's also like a geophone, basically detects vibration also. So that's kind of cool. But the old tri-field naturals, you can't beat those things, because they've got the electric setting, the magnetic, the sum, and you just gotta, I see people carrying them around. That's the only bad thing. You gotta sit them down. And I see a lot of investigators walking around with those, and the Earth's own geomagnetic field, the magnetic field of the Earth will actually set them off if you're carrying them like that. So you gotta be real careful with them.
Yeah, that's just how you just have to know the how these devices work and how to use them properly. And that's why
Sure.
when I'm doing my little presentations, I always try to tell people that you shouldn't hold a digital recorder in your hand because you can
Yeah.
cause noise to it. You can't use non-contact thermometer guns for temperature changes. You
Right.
can't even use FLIR cameras for temperature changes unless, again, FLIR is also a contact reading. A lot of people don't understand that. So I mean, unless you got a mass, a ghost that actually has some mass that would be able to say block the dots from a laser grid, it's not going to pick up anything. And then of course with the tri-field, you're just moving it right through the fields around us and giving a lot of false readings. So
and me and Dickerson just made a really cool educational video here, like last week or a couple weekends ago, regarding the non-contact thermometer and how that does not pick up something between what it's measuring with the surface. Like it doesn't pick up stuff in between. We actually took a fan and a bag of ice, and we measured the wall. And we took a fan and blew some real cold air in between the wall and the non-contact thermometer to get a cold breeze going through there to see if there's any possible way it could even pick up that. And it won't, because it's picking up surface temperature and bouncing it back into the thermal scanner. But just to prove a point, that it can't pick up any type of even cold air currents between it and a object. So I mean, we're gonna be putting that out pretty soon too.
What I did, and I actually already filmed it. I haven't had a chance to put it together yet, but we went out there. Myself and Chuck Williams, my Indiana State coordinator, went out a couple of years ago, maybe last year, and we went out in the dead of winter. I mean, it was freezing cold. I was in my backyard. There was snow on the ground. I was breathing cold air out of my mouth, and I had the non-contact thermometer gun. So I said, I'm going to show everybody what the temperature is. So I mean, basically. Everybody thinks that this is because what you're picking up is the air temperature. But actually what you're picking up is the snow on the ground. You're picking up the cold, the trees, the bushes, whatever the case may be.
Sure.
And I said, well, if it actually is air temperature, if people still want to believe it's air temperature, then what I did is I kept the thermometer gun depressed and I put my hand up and I said, well, now if that froze up there for a second there. Oops.
Very good.
Yeah. So what I did is I put my hand up and kept the thermometer gun on and said, well, if it's actually air temperature in between the thermometer and my hand, it should pick up air temperature, but it wasn't. It was picking up the temperature of my hand.
Right. Yep.
So basically that kind of proved that it was actually a contact reading and not picking up the air in between my hand and the gun.
Yeah. Well. A lot of people misuse that.
Yeah.
Reading these.
It sure is.
More questions here.
Yeah, sure.
Let's see. There's a bunch of them. Trying to pick some of the good ones here. Jennifer says, I think spirits get attached to a certain location, whatever is meaningful to them, like a house or a church. So I guess, I guess she's asking if spirits can attach to a particular place, like their house or a church or their favorite location. And I guess that's what she's asking.
Yeah, I think basically, again, when we're dealing with spirits, earthbound spirits, I mean, sometimes, again, there's two different main categories I like to put it in. Is what I consider to be a residual, which is kind of a replay. There may not be any real intelligence there. And then the intelligent, where there's interaction, we get ETs, we can see the ghost sees us, there's interaction. And in a lot of cases, you can have both of those sometimes attached, or at least linger at a site where they had a great time, whether it could be a house, it could be a bar, a tavern, a restaurant, a bowling alley, a church, an opera house, and because they put so much of their energy into there while they were alive, they might linger around there. And it's like the whole idea where people think, well, okay, I got a ghost in my house and I don't like the ghost, so I'm going to right away move and go into a new house. Well, you always got to be careful about that, because there's haunted houses and there's haunted people.
That's
Ghosts
exactly
can
right.
be attached to a person, and if you're too hasty about leaving your old house behind, you might think that every house you're moving into is haunted, and really the ghost is just simply following you from point A to point B.
Yeah, yeah. I consider some haunted people too. Like when I say there's haunted people, I'm kind of looking at it from a different point of view, like a psychological point of view. Some people they want a place to be haunted, so it's they're kind of creating the haunting themselves. A person moves into a new house and not familiar with the old sounds. The creaking floorboards, the popping vents. Just the psychological effect of moving into a new home, and that's why I always ask people when we get investigations. One of the questions I'll ask is how long have you lived at the house? Because a lot of times we find, oh, we just moved in, and we call that the haunted person effect, because they're haunted by the home itself. They're not used to the new pops, the bangs, their house, and they think it's some type of ghostly activity, and it's just a natural explanation. But yeah, I always say there's more haunted people than there are haunted houses, because the people themselves are haunted by the psychological aspect of how they perceive things.
Well, I mean, a ghost can be emotionally attached to a person because, again, just the emotional bond that you have with that person while they were alive, whether it be a father, a mother, a son, a daughter, an aunt, or an uncle, or a grandfather, grandmother. But sometimes it can be what I call mistaken identities. Sometimes ghosts will attach to people that they don't even know, only because the person they're attaching to resembles the person that they once knew. And they actually it's a case of mistaken identity. There was an interesting experiment done, I believe, I'm trying to think it was the 1960s or 1970s by a Canadian research group. There was a book written about it called Conjuring Up Philip, where they actually got around a table and they actually tried to conjure up and actually to perform a ghost, if you will, by giving it an identity, giving it a personality, and giving it a death date, a birth date, who they've married to, who they have children. I mean, the whole personality as an experiment. And there was actually a lot of knocks and raps that came to the table. The table came off the floor, 3 or 4 feet off the floor. Wow. And it wasn't just it just tipped. I mean, it literally came up off the floor. There's video of that. And so that just shows you, I mean, that's really, I don't think that they actually conjured up the ghost more than they actually using their own energies of their mind, psychokinesis and whatever. The combined energy of the people in the room calls the phenomenon. But it was called Conjuring Up Philip. It's a very interesting book.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah. I've heard somewhat about that, but I didn't know the title to it. I've heard about that, and experiments like that, with trying to do that. Try to look at some more questions here. It's kind of getting into some religious stuff. I try to stay away from the religious stuff because you get in arguments with that. But we got a question. Karen Cass is regarding spirits. Are they spirits who haven't made it to heaven, or spirits from heaven, or both? Not sure what she's asking here. It says, regarding spirits, are they spirits who haven't made it to heaven, or spirits from heaven? I don't know. I guess she's asking.
I think most of this, I would think that most of the spirits that I've investigated, and of course I can't be 100% sure because this is not an exact science, but I believe that what we're mostly dealing, and I think maybe you would agree with that, is maybe that spirits that haven't quite crossed over for one reason or another. Maybe not that they came from heaven and went backwards. They've already passed on, and they've already went to their final resting place, whether it be heaven, hell, beyond, altered state of consciousness, or whatever. So I think it's mostly those that have not quite made it over. And that can be for a variety of reasons. Most often it's due to untimely death, violent death, murder, suicide, car crash, plane crash, train wreck, drowning, drive-by shooting, something of that nature. Or in some cases, there can be other categories of ghosts, like crisis apparition. A good example is you're driving down a road, you're coming to a stoplight, you got the green light, something says in your head, stop. You do, somebody blows through the red light. Something is like a time of crisis comes over maybe a guardian spirit. There are deathbed visitations where people say they're dying. You see their relatives come to them, kind of like leading off to the other side. But I think the vast majority, at least what I've been researching, is I believe that are spirits that haven't quite crossed over because of the way they died.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you on that. And like it's kind of scary and eerie at the same time. Like almost 90% of the EVPs that we capture, or the voices, the disembodied voices captured on recorders, or even through like any type of electronic means with ITC and the instrumental transcommunication. A lot of times you hear that help me. It's like, and that's kind of worth, like you're saying, why do they need help? They don't realize they're dead. Did they pass on? It was a tragic event. They need to relay a message to somebody. It's pretty crazy.
Well, I would add one thing to that, and again, I know you're trying to stay away from religion, but just a very brief thing. When I first got involved with the very first psychic I worked with back in 1982, which is the very first investigation ever at Bachelor's Grove, was May of 1982, and she during the course of healing, she would see apparitions, and she didn't really pay much attention to that until we started to work together. And she said that she's not really religious, that she doesn't really go to church, like most people go every Sunday and every religious holiday. But she did say that one thing that seemed to stick out is that there were a lot of spirits asking for help, and by help, she seemed to think that the spirits were just asking for prayer. And she said that prayer was one thing that's really seemed to create the environment for the spirits to finally be at rest, and just some sort of prayer. She said that when the church just said you pray for people, they just thought they just meant it just as a way of religion, but it may actually be what these spirits are really asking for when they ask for help, is asking for prayer, some sort of guidance to the other side or something.
Yeah. I don't know. I gotta, like I said, I've told this, I think maybe even on the last show, I asked how I could help them. And I got a voice back one time. I was in a private session at my house, just trying to ask why these spirits need help. And it said, help them repent. So it's kind of almost the same thing, maybe prayer does help, maybe it helps them cross over or do something like that. So, but yeah, like I said, I didn't want to get into the religion part, but I've noticed too, getting into the black stuff, the shadow figures. I've noticed over the years investigating and interviewing people that it depends on what religion they are, on whether the stuff is evil or demonic. Like it seems like some different churches look at different things differently. That's all I'm gonna say. Like some might think the color black is evil or demonic automatically just because of their their faith and what they've grown up with and believed religiously all their life. And where I look at it as just a black shadow figure of something causing a some type of mass or shadow onto the wall, where they look at it as evil and demonic. And I think that goes back into religion too, and how a person was brought up. How the different religions that we have, and the different way, some people weren't religious, some people were, and it does kind of play a role and effect in what we do, because we have to get into the mindset of what these people believe and how they perceive things. So it's kind of we're kind of like.
I think it even goes back even a bit further than that, perhaps. I mean, this is going to sound completely ludicrous, perhaps, but it even goes back to cowboys and Indians. And Westerns. I mean, because you got to remember, everybody that was dressed in black Bart, he was always the bad guy, and of course, like the Lone Ranger or the good guys were always wearing white. So it's always a stigma that, and it's nothing to do with the race card or anything like that. I mean, it's just a thing. This is just simply saying black is bad and white is good. And my whole idea with the shadow people, I mean, obviously they're shadow people. I don't know anybody ever seeing a shadow person that was a white shadow person. I mean, it's usually black. Okay, so does it mean all shadow people are evil? I would say no, and some people might disagree with me, but I mean, I think that's just the way that these entities or ghosts are able to manifest at the time that they're manifesting. They just simply show up as a shadow rather than a streak of light, a ball of light, a mist, an orb, a semi-transparent figure, or a full-bodied apparition. I mean, that's just the way they happen to show up at that time. Does that make them evil? I don't think so.
Sure, exactly. Yeah, I agree with you 100% there. Looking through some more questions here. We have hit the 10 o'clock mark. I usually go 2 hours with this, but I'm having fun here, Dale. I mean, if you want to stay on and answer some more questions, we'll go over.
Say as long as you want me to. I got nothing better to do.
Okay. We'll go ahead and stay over here, guys, and answer some of you guys' questions here. And Ian Vickers said, did Dale do the Robinson Bowling Alley? Yeah, we did. We did the Robinson Bowling Alley, and I think Dale, and he's probably talking when Todd was there too. We were doing the radio show with Todd. I guess one of these guys had met you.
I was there, I think, 3 times we did investigations. The last time didn't turn out so well, but I won't go into any further details.
Yeah.
But the last one, we did get some interesting stuff that's actually up on our website. We got some alarm that went off by itself. We got some whispers. I mean, what I call true EVPs, nothing that came through a ghost box or a novelist or anything like that. We actually got, again, I'm not a fan of orbs, but there were some very unusual looking orbs. Now, they could have been perfectly, again, natural, but I just flip them out because they twinkle and they look really strange the way they were coming down. I know when I went there, I think the very first time I came down to Robinson, you had told me that the bowling alley was gone. I go, oh, wow. I think what you told me it was like a payday payroll something or currency exchange or that it turned into or something like that.
Now it's they turned the whole place into like there's different stores there now, like Rosati's and there's a pizza place there. They turned the whole place into something different now. The bowling alley's gone now. When we investigated it, it was the bowling alley that's in there. Rick Kelsheim owned it at the time, and we we actually found some stuff back behind the bowling pins, like back in behind the where you go to work on the pins if something's wrong back in that area.
I think they call it the Bat Cave. They used to call it.
Yes, you're right.
Call it the Bat Cave. We actually had put a full spectrum camera back there all night and let it run all night. And I think you might have heard that we actually got a humming sound of a little girl humming on a 30-second clip, the same thing 3 times in a row, and there was nobody back there. So,
yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, Becky said the Gray Man haunted the bowling alley. I remember people reporting that to the Gray Man.
Yeah, I just wonder now with all these different businesses right on top of where it used to be a haunted site, if their businesses are haunted now.
Yeah, I think there have been a few reports of that, especially in some of the buildings. Like, I'm not 100% sure on that, but I think they have experienced a little activity. But I'm going to look more into that. Look at more questions here.
Just because you demolish a building and you build something out right on the property doesn't mean it's going to change anything, because it may be the building or it could be the property that's actually haunted. There's stigmatized property as well, the land itself.
Sure. Yeah. So, I agree 100%. And I think everybody's giving us hearts and thumbs up for keep going. So
okay.
I'm
fine with that.
Yeah. They said they could listen to us all night long. I don't know if I want to be here all night, but we'll definitely talk for a little.
I got my thing plugged into the wall, so I mean, I'm not going to run out of battery power here. I got 100% charge. So
awesome. Sounds good. But yeah, there's just, and I guess I'm going to go back to Bachelor's Grove, when we were there, and I got a couple pictures here you sent to me, and I kind of want to talk about those because we didn't bring those up yet. Let's see if I can find them here. Okay, kind of, is that all right, bringing the lady on the stone up? You want to talk about that a little?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, yeah. There's a wide angle view that we probably put the wide angle view up there first.
Okay. I'm going to put the wide angle view of a famous picture that was taken in Bachelor's Grove Cemetery And I believe I'm going to throw her name up there because I got permission after we went up there too. She said as long as we used her name and everything, which I'm sure, she was on your team and everything. I don't know where it was.
Yeah,
you do. Let me get her name up here real quick before I throw this up here. Got to look through my cues here. But, okay. This photograph I'm going to post, it was taken in August of 91 by Ghost Research Society team member Judy Huff. She's now known by Judy Vonder Smith. So I just want to put that up there. This photograph was taken by her. I want to give her credit for that, even though she was on Dale's team, I believe, at the time. But I'm going to show you guys the picture here. If I can get to it now. Okay, here's the wide angle view. And we'll throw it up there. Okay, they can still hear you in the background, Dale. Do you want to explain, what's going on in this picture?
Sure. Yeah, just keep the picture up for a little bit here.
Okay.
Basically, we had given everybody a map of the location. They went through teams of 2, and they didn't, bunch up because I wanted to make sure that the team ahead of them didn't contaminate the next team that was coming through. I told them to mark on the map wherever they felt anything unusual, if they saw anything, felt anything, the equipment went off, and then kind of give those maps to me. They were kind of transparencies. They marked on grease pencils, so I was able to just take the overlays and put them on a master map. And so we went through there, and several people had marked several locations that they had unusual experiences of some kind. Several had picked up something near a checkerboard tombstone, had no name on it. So we went back there. Judy Huff had always wanted to shoot infrared film, so she asked me how to do that. I sent her. I kind of coached her through this, and she had a 35 millimeter camera, as we did all. This is long before digital, 1991. And we went to different locations along the way, and she snapped various pictures. Now this picture here, if you look directly in the center of the picture, you can see there's tombstones in the center of the picture. And that was the focal subject of the image. In other words, when people take pictures, they often center whoever's in the picture in the center of the picture. They don't, that's usually how you do that. So when she snapped this and the others, she didn't know if she caught anything until, a week later or so when she got the film back. And initially she saw nothing out of the ordinary. She put this film away, she said, for several months, looked at it again. And all the way in the far left-hand corner of the picture, next to the tree there, there's a woman sitting on a tombstone that she did not initially see because, again, this was way off in the corner. So if you want to put the close-up shot here, so okay. What she did is she cropped up this picture, and this is what she saw. Again, this is just an enlargement. She did nothing else with it. And there's a kind of a semi-transparent figure of a woman in a white dress, long brown hair, kind of staring off in profile. You kind of see the right side of her head, sitting on this what we call the checkerboard tombstone. And initially, when this photograph went to the Chicago Sun-Times and Tribune, because they both ran with the story immediately when I told them about this great photograph, this is one of these once-in-a-lifetime photographs. Some people tried to say it was my wife who was sitting on the tombstone. Well, first of all, my wife was not dressed in a full-length Victorian gown down to her ankles. This was in mid-August, August 10th. So it was a very warm day. Some people had shorts on. Most had short-sleeve shirts. Most had blue jeans or pants of some kind. And nobody had walked through that was dressed like that. The interesting thing is that part of her head and her legs around her knees are actually semi-transparent. You can actually see trees and bushes through here. Now, when this photograph was initially sent away to Kodak in Rochester, New York, it was part of a documentary I did called Phantom Photographs for the Discovery Channel. It was seen by, I forget the gentleman's name right offhand right now, but he was supposedly a Kodak expert in film. He had never actually seen, I don't believe, an infrared film because he says, I believe this was told to me this was infrared film. So obviously he didn't know. And he said that he's looking at this photograph and he says it's most likely, in his opinion, to be a real person because she's casting a shadow. Now, if you look very carefully at this image, the woman and the tombstone are all in the shadows. They're already in the shadow. You can see the bright spot to her right and in front of her and behind her, but she is in the shadow, so she could not have been casting a shadow because she's already in the shadow. Unfortunately, I was never able to debunk that or kind of rehash that with him. He kind of got the final word. Eventually, this was shown on a show with a couple of shows actually on television. Aftershocks being one of them. I won't say any more than that, but they were able to again examine this photograph, and again, because this is infrared film. And this is 35 millimeter film, there is a negative. So what's on the negative is on the negative. You can never change the negative. Now, if you're really clever, you could make a copy negative, but even a copy negative is going to have this image on here. If you wanted to try to fake something like this, well, you could say that there was take a picture, there was nobody there. Then somehow scan it in and then put it in on the print using Photoshop.
Right.
But the negative is still going to show that person was in there all the time and or not there. You see what I'm saying? So you basically have something you can physically hold in your hand to say that there's some definitive proof and not simply like a digital camera, which is simply a bunch of ones and zeros, a digital image. This is where you have some physical evidence, like a Polaroid or something that you can hold in your hand, and they're almost impossible to fake. Negatives especially. Negatives especially. You can always Photoshop a print, but you can't Photoshop a negative.
Right. I'm gonna take that down now.
Yeah, sure.
But that's pretty interesting. And yeah, you were there when that was taken, correct?
Yeah, I was there. We were walking around. There was I think 3 or 4 areas that were marked. The most check marks were by this checkerboard tombstone. Now there was I don't know if any instrumentation went off, but people had a strange feeling. People I don't know, their own ESP or something. They just felt that there was something there. And there were some people that had never been there before. And of course, because this was the very first time any image has been captured since or before. There's never ever been an image of a person captured on here before or since. Nobody knew that this was possibly a haunted stone, or there was maybe a ghost attached to the stone in some way. So for them to go through and say, okay, I feel something here, then go back and then, wow, we got some photographic evidence. To me, that's pretty awesome.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm gonna show some pics here that we took while we were there. Here's one of me standing beside the stone, and you guys can see the stone, in relationship to what it looked like kind of in that picture. So I'm standing by the stone right there where the lady was photographed. And I think we got a picture of Courtney there somewhere. I don't know what happened to that. Trying to show you different pictures of the stone itself. Here's one of the stone by itself. I took a close-up shot of the stone. And
you can see it just kind of has a kind of a checkerboard marking on it. What we believe that there probably was something that used to be on top of that stone, like a pinnacle or some kind of other stone on top, which would have had the name and the dates and so forth, but that's been long gone, and I've never seen it, so I don't know what name it is. We believe, and I believe my friend Len Dorman is still on, and he did a lot of investigating in Bachelor's Grove with me and also by himself, and we believe that this ghost is probably a woman named Amelia Patrick. We're able to get some pictures of Amelia Patrick when she was alive, some old black and white photographs, and by kind of comparing the images of the woman on the stone and Amelia Patrick, there is a striking resemblance to that.
Oh yeah. We got a lot of pictures we took there that day. I'm kind of just looking through them here, trying to find some more.
He also said on several occasions when he was doing EVP work out there, and even shooting full spectrum cameras, that there was movement here. There was a very cold breezes that came through the area. Other things that happened to him when he was there by himself, with his wife, or with other people, including me. I was there at least once or twice with Len, I know, doing work out there in Bachelor's Grove. And this is one place we always want to stop and do something at. We set meters on there, tri-field meters. We might set up a REM pod or things of that nature to try to
I know when we were there, I set some equipment. Here's a picture of that. I put our equipment, some of it on the stone. I set some tri-fields up on it. I set a millimeter up on it. I tried to, see if the stone itself gave off any type of electromagnetic field or any type of energy. I know we did some ghost box sessions around it, some Phasma box sessions, and just a pretty cool story, or pretty cool, stone. And Bachelor's Grove Cemetery in itself, it's got a lot of mystery to it. Of course, if I can find it here, I've got one of our famous pictures, Dale, if I can get to it. Should I show the one of just us, or should I do the comparison?
Let's just do them both.
Do them both?
Yeah,
okay.
Do them both.
All right. Okay. Well, here's the. I'll do Ghost Adventures first, then I'll show them what real ghost hunters look like.
Okay. There you go.
Okay. Here's the famous Ghost Adventures picture in the Bachelor's Grove Cemetery. Okay, that's when Ghost Adventures, investigated the cemetery. They took this photograph there, and I'll show you guys our version of this now. This is the real ghost hunters when we went there to investigate. So we're standing in front of the same stone. That's me and Dale and Jason Dickerson there doing our best Ghost Adventures impression, but I'm sure they'll appreciate that. Zach will probably be on here talking to us here in a minute, but he'll probably think it's funny, actually. But yeah.
Well, we actually gave him a little bit of a plug, so I mean, they should be happy with that.
Yeah, I know. I'm actually giving him a plug here instead of but it was a good time, definitely.
It was. I mean, we've gotten some interesting, readings there in the past. In fact, we were actually able to set it was a REM pod on top of the Fulton stone, the one that we're posing in front of.
Yeah.
And you know how a REM pod works. Something's got to come in contact with that REM pod for it to begin to make an alert. And almost as soon as we put that up there, it started to alert. I mean, it wasn't lighting up a lot of the lights, but you could actually hear the.
Right.
The same thing happened during another investigation, I think back in 2013, when we were by, if you remember, the checkerboard tombstone is, but further back, it was a stone all by itself, and we had put that on there, and we were videotaping when all of a sudden it went off. It started to go off. And the funny part was that we kept on filming even for several minutes afterwards. And this was crazy. An insect actually landed on the telescopic probe, never set it off. I thought it was kind of strange. We got a picture of that in video, actually. But it was something an energy that came close enough to set that thing off. We've actually got an EVP that came through, I believe it was I think it might have been the obelisk in phonetic mode that actually says the name Amelia Patrick.
Oh, that's cool.
There. We also have one that says the name Minna, M-I-N-N-A, and just before as you walk into the cemetery, that first stone on the left is Hagman, and her name is Minna Hagman. So that was pretty cool. We got some very interesting names. The bad thing about doing anything at Bachelor's Grove, unfortunately, is the car is constantly going by in Midlothian Turnpike. There you go.
Yeah, here's the Grady he's talking about.
Yeah. And the cars going past just make a lot of noise, unfortunately. So it's kind of hard to do any true EVP work unless you're out there really late at night or able to block the cars, which we usually can't do. But we were able to do something out there, I believe, in 2016 or 2017 at night, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was the only downfall I seen to Bachelor's Grove. Yeah, it was really hard to do any EVP sessions and not get cars, on that highway. Because if you look across the lagoon, that road kind of goes across there to the bridge back on the far side of the lagoon. So it's like you can hear the cars from it sometimes. But
right.
You want to talk about the lagoon? I'll pop some pictures up here while you're talking about it that I took there, and kind of tell some of the stories of the lagoon and stuff.
Sure.
Okay.
There is a kind of a stagnated body of water, and you can kind of see what I mean by stagnated. It's very green. It doesn't flow. There's a small stream far to the left that kind of flows into it, but it doesn't do much to keep it so being stagnated. So it's not a place you want to do any deep sea diving or anything. But there have been a lot of reports during the Capone era, allegedly, of bodies being dumped in here, possibly illegal firearms. There have been tombstones that have been actually dredged out of there. We actually have video of a guy, a friend of mine, Pete Crapia, going out there in knee-deep water, dragging a tombstone, about a 300-pound tombstone out of there. There have been reports of a two-headed monster that people have seen coming out of the lagoon from time to time. But probably the most interesting story happened to a couple of Cook County forest rangers back in around 1979 or so. They were on routine patrol. They were coming up to the bridge by the lagoon, and they suddenly saw a farmer and a horse dragging a plow emerge from the lagoon, cross directly in front of them on the Midlothian Turnpike, and disappear into Rubio Woods. Now, they never officially reported what they had seen, obviously, because lack of being ridiculed or laughed at. Later research did indicate that some anecdotal evidence that came through, we have nothing concrete, but anecdotal evidence of a farmer and his horse, possibly in the 1870s, that might have been plowing land out here. And for some reason, maybe the horse got stung by a bee, got scared in some way, and ran headlong into the lagoon. If you remember how the plows were back in the 1870s, the farmers were kind of strapped into the plow, and they kind of dragged by the horse behind them. So the weight of the horse and the plow and the straps and everything probably dragged the horse and him under, and they both drowned. Some 109 years later or so, roughly, these two Cook County forest rangers saw them emerging on the other side, still probably plowing land, just like they might have been doing. This probably happened so quick that they didn't realize that they had died, and they were still out there 100 years later, still plowing land out there.
Yeah.
Which often happens in these cases of untimely death.
No, definitely. Yeah, that place is really cool. I really enjoyed our investigations there, and actually, Pete was there when we were there. You remember that? I remember him showing up.
He was kind of in the shadows a little bit. He was around.
Yeah.
There have been so many other things. Blue light that's been seen out there. The famous disappearing cars, disappearing house that's been seen throughout the years of a house appearing and then disappearing, shrinking, getting smaller and smaller. People chasing these ghost lights, phantom dogs. A report of a woman dressed in white carrying a baby in her arms, often seen on moonlit nights. And then a lot of people just physically becoming ill sometimes, just feeling like they're just sick. They feel like they're being drained of energy. Obviously, a lot of equipment being drained. Tape recorders, cameras, other devices, like something just sucking the energy out of everything, which is very typical in haunted locations. And it's an area that I don't care what time of the day you go there. I don't care if it's a weekday or weekend. You pretty much can't even have the place to yourself, because as we were there, as you know, there were several people that came in and out of there. It's very popular. Nothing really stops people from coming out. Sometimes not even at the dead of night. Kind of an interesting story. We had permission to be out there at night, and we had our cars all the way up to the gates. This is the first time any pedestrian cars or investigators had ever been out there legally. So we were the first ones to have legal permission to be out there. with our cars and everything out there. And as we were coming back out down the road, I was videotaping it, kind of set the camcorder on my dash, was videotaping because I thought it was kind of something I wanted to treasure of us actually driving down Batros Grove Road.
Sure.
And on the right hand side, here's 4 or 5 teenagers coming in, and they saw the headlights and they didn't know whether to run or just to stay there. So they got far up the side of the road. They thought they were all busted because they thought it was the cop coming out of there.
Yeah.
And as soon as I passed by, they saw my license plate, which says ghost. And they said, "Oh, they're just ghost hunters."
Yeah, I thought that was.
So they got a break at least.
Yeah, I thought that was a freaky sight.
It sure
Not
was,
knowing,
yeah.
you know. And I think a lot of the activity at Bachelor's Grove has been due to the vandalism over the years too. You know, and I'm going to show you guys, you know, a couple shots of these stones. You know, it's like almost, if I can find them here, you know, a lot of the stones have been vandalized, you know, over the years. There's, you know, kind of a shot of some of them, you know, they're just laying down, or half of them are missing. There's half the stones are gone. And I think, you know, that could definitely cause a haunting. And I mean, this is a tree I took a picture of next here. You know, people spray paint the trees. You know, it looks like they're trying to do some type of satanic ritual out there. You know, it's just unfortunate, you know, the kids and the people go out there and disrespect an area like that. But, you know, it's happens everywhere, especially these, you know, well-known haunted locations. That's why we try to keep some of our locations.
And the more remote, the worse it gets, because as you know, in your neck of the woods, Jason, there's probably a lot of places out there that are heavily vandalized that are out in the middle of nowhere. Batros Grove is not anywhere close to being as remote as some of the places you took me to, but it's still pretty remote out in Midlothian, and it's part of the forest preserve. And really, the only thing that keeps people out of there is the threat of being ticketed by the Cook County Sheriff's Police officer or forest rangers for being trespassing in a forest preserve at night. It's not that they're going in a cemetery; it's that they're trespassing in it after dusk in a forest preserve, which forest preserves are closed at dusk.
Sure.
And, unfortunately, people go out there and they topple over the tombstones, they spray paint graffiti, and in some cases, they even dig up some of the graves. That's happened. I got many pictures of that in the past, which is pretty gruesome.
Yeah, I know when we were out there, there were some candles and stuff everywhere, and
that
people
was
just
yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of history, you know, to that area.
In fact, weren't we out there when that scantily dressed woman was posing on the tombstones? They were kind of doing a photo shoot out there. Was that some other time?
I think you were telling me about it. I think that might have been shortly before we were out there. Yeah.
We were out there one afternoon, and there was some photo shoot crew out there with a very scantily dressed woman in kind of like a negligee, kind of posing on tombstones all around Bachelor's Grove. I don't know how respectful that actually is. I mean, it probably made some good posts for some people wanting to see a half-naked women, perhaps. But posing on tombstones. I mean, I always think that there's such thing as karma. So I mean, what you do comes back at you twofold, maybe somewhere.
For
down
sure.
the line. So.
Yeah. Then here's the stone we posed by too, at the backside of it, I believe, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the largest tombstone in there, and it's the only stone that hasn't been toppled because it probably weighs 700-800 pounds. It's the largest stone, the Fulton tombstone from John Fulton Senior, I believe. The date on the grave is from the 1830s, 1838, I believe.
Yeah.
And, so there's a smaller stone that says infant daughter. Where a lot of people will post, will actually leave little mementos, sort of like little dolls, little toys. They leave coins and things of that nature, and it's thought to be good luck to do that. It's also to give the little girl something to play with, the little infant daughter to get something to play with. Of course, it's always as Jason has pointed out, that places that we've been in his neck of the woods, it may be somewhat bad luck to remove that stuff from there. They
Right.
want to take the coins or the quarters or the pennies out of there.
Sure.
So sometimes we come there and they're completely cleaned off. So I don't know if somebody's doing them, if the forest district is doing them or what, but I don't touch any of that stuff. I might add to it, but that's about all.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Um, and yeah, I mean, I could sit here, we could talk all day, but we also visited Al Capone's grave when we were there. There's a picture of me and Courtney Bowen and Dickerson when we were at Capone's grave at Mount Carmel Cemetery. That was another interesting place. You know, we done some investigations at with Dale while we were up in his neck of the woods. So, um,
Yeah, that's Alphonse Capone's grave. He was moved from the other cemetery, Mount Olivet, because the grave, the plot was not large enough for him to be buried with the entire family. Mother, his father, his brother, and all his cousins. So they eventually moved him over to this larger plot, so they all could be buried together. That's actually Al's grave.
yeah.
Very, very common low grave, my Jesus mercy.
Mhm.
But the big family marker that says Capone in front of it. It used to be covered with bushes, so I don't know if they were doing that purposely to try to hide it so people couldn't see the Capone, because you'd have to actually go down out of the car and look at the ground level markers. But like directly across the road is actually where Frank Nitti is buried. And Frank Nitti,
Oh yeah.
the
Yeah.
one that we investigated that blew his brains out on the Illinois Central train tracks. And he took over from Capone when Capone was sentenced to prison for income tax evasion. And places like the Rock, Alcatraz, and even Eastern State Penitentiary, that picture there.
Yeah.
And so Frank Nitti was the brains of the outfit, and was called the Enforcer. They all had nicknames. Everybody had nicknames. Scarface, Joey the Clown Lombardo, Paul the Waiter, Rica, Frank Nitti the Enforcer. I mean, everybody had like little kind of nicknames. Um, Big Tuna, things of that nature. So they rarely were called by their actual first and last names, but he is buried almost a stone's throw, easily walking distance across the little entrance onto from the Roosevelt Street side of the cemetery. So
Oh
you
yeah.
see
Yeah.
two big main Chicago bosses, the last two big bosses of Chicago gang history, because back then you pretty much knew who was in charge of the city, because you knew Capone, you knew Bugs Moran, you knew Frank Nitti. Now they say, well, who's in charge of the gang of Chicago? Nobody knows. They don't want that kind of publicity.
Sure.
They want to kind of stay, hidden from the law. But back then they were almost invincible because they controlled the law. They controlled the judges. They controlled the lawyers. They paid everybody off, so they basically ran the city.
Yeah.
They got a lot of interesting markers all through there. You got people like Machine Gun Jack McGurn, who was thought to be maybe one of the people that was involved with the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. You have the Jenner brothers that were there as well. You have Dion O'Banion, who was the Northside gang leader, who was actually eventually used to supply all the flowers to all the funerals of all the gang bosses, and eventually he was killed in his own flower shop directly across from Holy Name Cathedral. And today you can visit Holy Name Cathedral and still see the bullet scars on the church, some of the bullets that actually went across and actually took out a little section, a little tiny scar on the one corner that would have been the northwest corner of the church.
That's crazy. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I always like places like.
Then you got Vincent the Schemer Drucci, who
Yeah.
was also a Northside gang leader, and he was actually arrested, fought with an officer inside the squad car, and actually ended up shooting himself by accident. Yeah, a lot of people that died during that Capone era, and eventually ended up just Bugs Moran and Al Capone until the St. Valentine's Day Massacre, and then it was just pretty much Al Capone.
Yeah, I'm trying to look for a picture here we took.
So if you ever come back, Jason, I mean, we can show you all this gangland history in Chicago, like the Biograph Theater where Dillinger was killed, St. Valentine's Day Massacre side. We might even be able to get close enough do a little bit of an EDP work there. You
Oh,
can
for
still
sure.
you can still stand on the sidewalk perfectly legal and actually see the empty lot where they were gunned down, and all these locations right in downtown Chicago, which are very accessible without even having the trespass. You can just be on a public sidewalk.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So
I
you,
definitely
you
would have
see what
kept.
you see what I'm doing though. I'm baiting you to come back. You see that?
Oh, I know. I want to come back. I'm excited to come back. Definitely. We didn't get to see it all, in our trip there, and I plan on making that a summer thing too. Like you come down here, so I definitely want to
Yeah.
get back up there. One thing I want to talk about too. I believe this was in the Mount Carmel Cemetery. Also, is that the rotating stone?
Yes. Yes.
Is it? Is it?
It's the
Yeah, the only one I could find.
DeSalvo stone. It's called.
I'm gonna throw that up there. I got a picture of Courtney Mendenhall and Courtney Bowen beside it. I'll throw up there. Now this stone, guys, that thing actually rotates. You can take the stone and the whole top of it turns, and
Right.
it's really unique. I've never seen a turning tombstone before, but
It was put up somewhere in the 1920s, I believe, if memory serves me correctly, maybe the late 20s. And there's a mechanism that, even a 100-pound weakling could basically just kind of take the top of it and kind of lean into it, and you kind of turn that stone 360 degrees around.
yeah,
And it was done purposely for that reason. Whatever mechanism is still in there for more than almost 100 years now, 1920, is
it's
still
crazy.
working perfectly, and it's the only revolving tombstone I've ever found. I found
Yeah,
some disappearing stones. I found ones that look like they move by themselves I believe it's a cemetery in Ohio. I don't remember the name right offhand. It's a big giant
yeah.
ball that sometimes moves, and a few
Uh,
others like that. But this one actually you move by yourself, which is pretty cool.
oh yeah. Got an interesting question here by Christine. She says, "Does Capone have any connection with Crawford County?" Now, I have heard there's a house in Robinson that, and I really would give it out because I don't know if it's abandoned now or not, but that did have a connection with Al Capone. That he used to stay there back in the day. Now, I've also heard that he listed in Crawford County, but he would dump bodies on the way up on the Indiana side. There's a place called Blue Hole up in by Prairieton, Indiana, up there where he might have dumped some bodies, as he came through there. But there's been no facts, presiding that. But what's your opinion on? Do you think he has any connection to Crawford County that you've been aware of, Dale, our county?
Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, every place we go, we always ask, is there a Capone connection? Because it seems like Capone has been all over, literally.
Yeah.
There are many places in our area. In fact, there's a speakeasy called Al Capone's Hideaway and Speakeasy in St. Charles. Of course, along Archer Avenue, the old, I think I showed it to you guys when you were there at the Irish Legend across from the
Yes.
Willowbrook Ballroom.
Mm-hmm.
That was a definite Capone connection. There was a Capone connection in Widow McCleary's, which was a speakeasy and bar in Thornton, Illinois. I didn't get a chance to show you that. There was an underground artesian well that they used to use that sweet tasting purified water to brew the beer. It was run by a guy named Al Saltis, but he had a Capone connection. And of course, all over, even in Northwest Indiana, in Southern Wisconsin, and I'm sure in downstate Illinois as well, because there was very few places actually in the state of Illinois. I mean, I won't say everyone, but very few that wasn't under the thumb of Al Capone, especially during Prohibition,
Right.
Because he wanted to take total control of the city, and that's why his idea to eliminate the North Side Gang in the infamous St. Valentine's Day Massacre took place, because he wanted to have total control of the city. And he was the stronger of the two, obviously. I mean, he had this beautiful outline plan to get everybody in a building at the same time, pose as cops, and then line them up on the wall and kill them. And they all got away. Nobody was ever convicted of that crime. It's still an unsolved crime. So, even the bar next to it, the Clark Street Ale Bar, is said to be haunted. There's think it's one or two houses down on the same side of the road. They say there's some activity in there as well. From what I've heard, even some people from the nursing home that is just north of where these gunmen were gunned down say that they've actually seen things in that lot from time to time, shadows and so forth.
Oh, wow.
They're supposed to be in there. Canines react very strangely to it. They pull back. As you know,
That's
canines are
interesting.
very highly trained. Dogs are very sensitive to picking up that kind of phenomenon. They'll bark and they'll snarl. Now,
Sure.
what are the dogs picking up? Are they actually picking up the spirits of those that died in the St. Valentine's Day massacre? Or are they actually picking up a dog called Highball, who was actually in the garage at the time of the massacre? He was actually tied to a bumper of one of the cars. And it wasn't when these guys were shot down, strange story, true though, you can look it up. It wasn't so much the police were called because of the machine gun fire, because they said that was very common in Chicago. So people got used to machine gun fire in Chicago.
Crazy.
It was the insistent barking of this dog. He just kept barking and barking because he was barking at the body of his dead owner next to him, and he was howling. So the police were called for a howling dog when they broke into the building. That's where they found the gangsters.
Huh. That's pretty interesting. I didn't know that.
That's pretty cool. So I wonder if the dog is picking up the dog that's now dead, obviously.
Could be.
Or the dead people that are in there.
Yeah.
Or their spirits, at least.
Could be. Let's see if I got anything else here. Also, you'd sent me some EVPs. You want to play a few of them, or you want to call it?
Sure. Just let me know which one you're going to put up, what the name of it is, and I can kind of.
Okay. And bear with me, guys. I'm going to try to post these EVPs. Like I say, I'm new at doing this talk show. This is just our second episode, so I'm going to try to do this without messing it up. And we're going to, let me see. I'll tell you once I get it up here, Dale. But we're going to play some EVPs that Dale sent me, and he's going to explain to you what went on there. And I'll play these 3 EVPs, and then after that, we'll probably call it a night because we're getting close to the 3-hour mark after that. But Dale's probably getting tired over there. Well,
not really.
You get to go? No, okay, maybe we'll keep going. We'll see what it does here.
I'm a night owl. If you got people
me
that
too.
Want to talk, I mean, it's up to you. I don't want to keep you up, but
I'm fine. Let's see here. Okay.
As they say, you are in control. You are the control center.
Okay. So the first one we're going to play, Dale, is We're Excited. You want to talk about that before I play it real quick?
It's called what?
It was titled We're Excited.
Okay. Yeah, okay. I believe this one was when we were in St. Albans Sanitarium in Virginia, and we had the Phasma box on, and we didn't really ask a question. You kind of hear the very beginning somebody kind of go, oh, kind of like going like that or something, and so somebody asked me what it said. I said, well, this sounded like somebody who was just kind of like screaming really loud or something, and then somebody asked, are you excited? And then you'll hear the response.
Okay, here we go. I'm gonna have to restart that. Hold on a minute. If you guys can hear it out there.
Something, yeah, right. Are you excited for us? We're excited. Did you hear that? We're excited. Holy cow!
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I'll play that one. Oh, go ahead, Dale.
I was going to say, basically, we're asking the spirit, are you excited? And an immediate response says, we're excited.
Oh, yeah. I'll play it one more time, then we'll go to the next one.
What was that? Oh, something, yeah, right. Are you excited for us? We're excited. Excited. Did you hear that? We're excited.
Pretty cool.
You can see even Dale is excited for something like that.
For sure. Okay, the next one we're going to talk about is the more than 100.
Okay, this was an interesting site. This was, we were actually part of a meet and greet, and there was a short little 2 or 3 cemeteries, 2 cemeteries and actually a former asylum, which is no longer there, that we had a chance to investigate during the day. And we were coming into a place called McConaughey Cemetery. And the McConaughey Cemetery, all they had was a sign and a trail leading into it and a fence around it, but they had no gravestone. So I asked a question, how many people are buried here? And then you'll get the response.
Here we go. That's awesome.
Did you hear that?
Yeah. That's
It
awesome.
says more than 100 or over 100, more than 100, something like that. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. I'll play it one more time.
How many people are buried here? Over 100. Did you
That's
hear that?
awesome.
And these are the kind of things that kind of sell me on the Phasma box. I mean, I got at least about 12.5 of these really great ones that I just put into an EVP file on just great captures we caught. Not just simply words, but entire phrases that come out.
Oh, for sure.
In direct
Yeah.
responses. Now, this last one, I think, is the only one you have left, right? This last
Yeah.
one
And
Okay.
it doesn't work.
Yeah, this one is really interesting too, very interesting. We were at the Elgin Casket Factory in Elgin, Illinois. And obviously it was a factory at one time that used to sell caskets, but what they make their most money on, it's been closed for many, many years. So what somebody bought the property, they dressed it up as one of these scare haunted houses that scared the bejesus out of you. People jump out with bloody knives and all that stuff. And that's how they make their money. But they also do paranormal investigation because there's been some activity here. So some of the interior is dressed up to look like things that are not real. In fact, there was a fuse box on the wall. It was not connected, but it kind of had like blood dripping from it. One of our members, Ron, I don't know if he's still on, Ron Lovett, had my SLS camera. He was facing it over there, and he suddenly saw a stick figure holding on or manipulating or touching that box. So she said, there's a stick figure by the box. So right away I said, if you're over there by the box, can you throw one of those switches? And then you'll hear the response.
Okay, here we go.
Turn on the switches. Those just work. There you go. I said, turn on the switches. It doesn't work. That's pretty good. Very good. That was turn for us.
Play it one more time. It's pretty good.
So the spirit basically was so intelligent. It actually said, when I said turn the switches, it just says it doesn't work.
Oh yeah, that's cool. I'll play it one more here.
Turn on the switches.
Hmm.
Those just work. There you go. I said,
That's
turn on
awesome.
the switches. It doesn't work. That's pretty good. Very good. That was turn for us.
See, one of my friends, Dean Thompson, I have 2 Dean Thompson friends. I have one Dean Thompson friend that lives in Alden, and another Dean Thompson that lives in Alton. Is that pretty close to being 2?
Oh yeah.
The one from Alton he was the one that turned me on to the Spasma box, because him and his friend from the group called PROSI, which is Paranormal Research Investigators of Southern Illinois, I believe they were at the Rhodes Hotel. You're probably familiar with the Rhodes Hotel, Jason, I'm sure. Heard about it. It's in, I can't think of the name of the town, but it's in like Indiana. And they were there, and they just asked kind of an oddball question. Do you like bacon? And a few seconds later, a voice comes by and says, I like bacon. And obviously that completely sold me on the Phasma-Box. I mean, when you ask a response
Can you
question
hear
like that,
me,
you get that
Dale?
response.
For some reason.
Say that again.
You guys hear Dale out there? I don't know if you
I
hear
can
me,
kind
Dale.
of hear you. I can kind of hear you.
Hear-
You might have to unplug the thing, maybe. Are you there?
Hold on a sec. We're having sound issues here, Dale.
No problem.
I'm gonna take you out for a minute, put you back in. Can you guys hear me out there all right? Huh. You can hear me, guys? Oh, that's weird. Got Dale out for a minute, having some sound issues. I'm gonna put him back in. Okay, Dale, you back?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Got you now. Don't
Okay.
know what happened. So
I'm sorry.
I don't know what happened.
Yeah. I know sometimes you were saying that sometimes when you got your earphone plugged in or you don't have it plugged in, sometimes you can't hear or something. I don't know.
Yep. Hold on. There we go. I got you now. I'm leaving these earphones out. I think I have a sound issue with this,
Okay.
so I can hear you.
Okay. Okay. Good. I was just kind of talking about, I mean, this one friend of mine from Dean Thompson from Alton had kind of turned me onto the Phasma-Box because they were at the Rhodes Hotel. You're probably familiar with the Rhodes Hotel in Indiana.
Sure.
They went there one day and they said sometimes they ask us really kind of strange off the wall questions. Like one day they just asked, "Do you like bacon?" And a few seconds later, a voice comes through and says, "I like bacon." I mean, that's just weird. I mean, when
Oh
you
yeah.
get something like that, and again, like I said, we went through the same rigmarole. We thought that perhaps in some way, shape, or form, and I don't know how this would even happen, that maybe we were broadcasting our questions, and somehow somebody was tuning into our broadcast on the Phasma-Box and answering them,
Oh yeah.
which is really kind of strange. I don't think that's even possible. But we just went ahead and we disabled the microphone on our laptop or our tablet. So we're not broadcasting. I mean, there's nothing going out, just everything coming in. And we're still getting responses. I mean, we're getting some absolutely crazy stuff here recently of all different types of, just not words, but entire sentences that make a lot of sense to what we just asked or where we're at the time. So
Sure.
for only being a $14.95 unit, which is all that application costs. And I don't know how you feel about applications. Usually, I'm not really, really sold on ghost applications,
Right.
especially
Me
some of the
either.
ones that, like the ghost radar is kind of crazy when you're kind of scanning and see the little blips like there's a ghost there. I mean, what in your phone is detecting that? I mean,
Right.
and the same thing with the ghost hunting tools where they have kind of like a built-in obelisk, but they also have the meters that kind of peak up and it shows us going into the red. Well, again, what in your phone is being able to detect EMF? It's not. It's just a little strange little app. So a lot of these are really kind of junk, but some of the Phasma-Boxes are really kind of cool. They actually have one that I've been working with. I don't know if I showed it to you, called Armenia, which not only does the same thing the Phasma-Box does with the voices coming through, but it cycles through faces and it will stop on a face and it'll show that if the spirit's angry, mad, or happy, or crying. The other one I wanted to try, which also does the same thing with the voices, but it's I forget what it's called, but it actually cycles through internet video. So occasionally a little video clip will play real quick. So maybe you're asking a question, say for instance, did you work in the railroad? And maybe there'll be a little video of a railroad or something that comes.
Yeah,
in,
yeah.
Cool. So I'm kind of looking into that when I'm thinking of maybe getting it just to play with. It's only $15. It's not a big loss if it doesn't work. But
Yeah.
I was so sold on the Phasma box that this guy, he's got probably a dozen or more of these applications, all different early versions and later versions of the Phasma box and different different devices. I kind of like working with the one you told me about was the Paratech.
The Paratech app.
Yeah, the Paratech app.
Yeah.
We've gotten some pretty interesting stuff from the Paratech app from time to time, and I haven't actually. I know you're working with that kind of I forget what you call it, kind of a yellow ghost box.
Sure, the Sangean.
What's it called?
It's the Sangean ghost box.
Okay, yeah.
You've
had some good success with that.
Oh yeah, I modified that one myself, and I've had some amazing success with that thing. I would highly recommend it. You know, it's we've got some crazy stuff there at Ravetown Bridge. You know, that we took you to last time we done a session on it. We got a guy that said, I said, "How did you die, or what were you doing?" He said, "I was fishing."
Oh, wow.
Came across as plain as day. I mean, I was fishing. Yeah. You know, so it's like, I don't know if he fell off the bridge while he was fishing, if he got drunk and fell out, you know, who knows? But yeah, we've got some crazy activity with that. But yeah, going back to the Paratech, you know, the Paratech app, I don't endorse a lot of apps either, but I'll tell you what, we've done experiments with that. We done one on Friday the 13th. If you guys go back into our videos and watch that, where several of us took the Paratech app across Bel Air Cemetery, and we all had the Paratech app running, and we took off in a line, about 4 or 5 of us, and we wanted to see if we could get the same words, or if you know, if we picked up one area, you know, if something was specific to that area, you know, across the different devices. So we lined up, we went out across the cemetery, and like 2 out of the 3 of us like got actual names, looked down, and that name was on the stone beside where they were at. I know Donovan got a name, Ben got a name, and Donovan and Ben both looked down, and that guy's name, like James was one of them, I remember. We looked down, there was a James buried right there, and he happened to be a doctor that's buried in the Bel Air Cemetery and a Freemason, so I got a kind of connection there too. But so strange things, you know, like with that Paratech app, just a lot of weird, if it's fake, there's a lot of weird coincidences, let me put it that way, you know, with it responding with words as to where we're at and what we're investigating.
Yeah. I mean, when I kind of once in a while, you know, I kind of cycle through the different types of devices we use. Usually I start with the obelisk and in dictionary mode, I move to phonetic mode, then I move to the Phasma box, and I might move to the ghost box. You know, try to find something that's easy for the spirits to manipulate. And sometimes I'll even go to some of the apps. So I still have the Ghost Radar. I don't pay any attention to the little scanning feature, but the word function is still in there. And I remember there was a kind of an interesting thing I was doing. We were at the Coliseum Ballroom in Beneld, which, by the way, after we did our investigation, about a week later, burned to the ground. So we were the last people actually in there. Actually ended up getting a brick from that from my friend Kelly Davis down there. So I got a brick from that. But I remember I was walking, trying to get back to the group. I guess I went to use the restroom or something. And I'm walking down this corridor, and I was going to come to a T. You had to go either left or right, and the T was over to the left. And just before I made the turn, the device goes left. I go, okay, thanks, because I was planning on going there. And then later on, kind of a weird word came through, Australia. I go, what's Australia? And the owner says, well, just last week we had a group from Australia come here.
Oh wow.
That's just bizarre. That's just totally bizarre. I mean, once in a while the word feature in the Ghost Radar can be kind of somewhat accurate. It does have a very easy to understand female voice talking, so it's not something like the obelisk in dictionary mode when you don't have the screen or something. It's kind of hard to understand, but this is a very easy to understand voice.
Yeah. Read some more questions here. Christine had a question for us. It says, and I've made several ghost boxes. So I'll try to answer her question to the best of my ability. But it says, what type of radio do you need to make a ghost box, and how? Unfortunately, Christine, a lot of the newer radios are being made to where you can't alter them to turn them into a ghost box, and that's what's bad, because we have to go on eBay and we have to go on and search for some of the older radios, and that's the same way with like the Sangean models, the older Radio Shack models. Back in the day, there was what was called a Frank's box. He kind of hacked. This guy named Frank, he kind of hacked some of the original Radio Shack model radios, and the newer models have been made with ribbons now instead of pins. So it depends on the make and model of your radio. A lot of the older Radio Shack models can be hacked and turned into a ghost box. We call them ghost box hacks. And you basically, what's happening inside these radios is you've got to have a digital radio. It can't be the older radio that you turn the dial on. But what's happening inside is you take it apart and you've got to cut or disable the mute feature in there. Some of them have a pin, some of them have a ribbon. All of them are kind of made a little different, so you got to figure out the hack and figure out how to do this. But you're disabling and cutting that mute function in there, which allows all the noise to come through, and it allows that radio to scan through the channels without stopping. A normal AM, FM digital radio will go through the radio channels, and it's designed to stop on the channel. What you're doing is you're also disabling that and letting all the sound come through, so it doesn't stop on each channel. It's scanning through the channels repeatedly and with nonstop, and that's how we try to get our communication. The theory is these ghosts and spirits are using the sound, or they're using different words and forming sentences, or a word that might come across several channels or frequencies at the same time, so you can hear them. They're kind of riding in on the waves sometimes and manipulating that sound. And most ITC researchers, instrumental transcommunication researchers, agree that ghosts or spirits need some type of background sound or some type of sound to form words and sentences with, and they're using that sound energy and stuff to do this and manipulate these devices in order to come through and communicate. So, but that's basically how a ghost box works, and how you make one. You can get on the internet and find a list of old Radio Shack model radios that you can hack and turn into a ghost box, but good luck finding them. I search eBay every day for them. I'm always on eBay looking for different models that I can hack. So
that's why you can't find them, folks.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah, I've got them all in my closet.
Well, see, the interesting thing, some of the very first devices, they were actually called hack shacks.
Yeah.
Basically, they were old, like you said, Radio Shack radios that you just kind of adapted inside there. Some actually went as far as to possibly take it a step further by trying to disable or remove the connection for the antenna. So in theory, it wasn't picking up any radio signals at all. So that way, basically, the idea there is that the spirits were using the white noise to communicate, and the white noise or pink noise was actually used by some very early EVPers like Dr. Konstantin Radovich, Professor Hans Bender from Freiburg University, George Meek with his experiments, and even Sarah Estep. I met and worked with Sarah Estep several times in Baltimore, and she talks about using white noise. And so white noise is kind of the best way I can explain it is kind of like a media or some sort of amplitude or energy, if you will, that the spirits are able to put the words on top of and use that energy. And that's why people say, well, I mean, when you're scanning, when I use the ghost box or any type of hack shack, or I don't have the one that Jason has, but I have several other devices, I try to scan at the fastest possible speed as I can, so I eliminate a lot of those radio signals from coming through, and so they're coming, so you only catch bits and pieces. So if you're scanning and you're going like, you got to remember that each is a station or a tenth of a station. So each, that's how fast it's scanning. So if you get a word, okay, that's fine. But then when you get, say, a sentence, and Jason's had whole sentences, I've had whole sentences.
Yeah.
Well, how do you explain that? How can a whole sentence come through when you're scanning as fast as you are, with the same voice, the same tonal qualities, tonal, tonal qualities?
Sure.
It's got to be that what the spirits are using, and they're using it white noise and not so much the radio signals at all. And that's how you're able to get a whole sentence to come through. And in some cases, the direct response. I mean, if we go back to the premise that it was, say, a radio doing that, well, first of all, it's impossible because you're scanning too fast. And if that was the case, that voice would have to be that true radio voice would have to be scanned over a variety of radio frequencies,
Sure,
to form a word. And that's even, to my way of thinking, harder to explain it that way than saying a spirit is manipulating it.
yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. It's strange. I mean, I've seen some strange things come across ghost boxes. It's like, and I mean, if I'm investigating a house, I mean, I use it for communication. I mean, I separate some of my research into like ITC and EVP research, but when we're investigating a house or something, some people, they don't understand it. They're like, oh, you're just picking up radio frequencies and all that. So sometimes I won't use a ghost box for actual evidence to prove a location's haunted, but I can't deny the evidence that I've collected over the years from ghost boxes. I mean, we are communicating with something. I don't know what, but we're communicating with something, whether it be a ghost, spirit, interdimensional being, whatever you want to call it. There's definitely communication coming across these devices for sure. And,
even Sarah Estep, I think, said that she believed that some of the things that she was communicating with were probably not earthly, or
right.
not even unearthly. I mean, they were like almost like an ultra dimensional being. There you go. Thank you.
Sure.
Or interdimensional being, or something that wasn't maybe even a human being at one time. Maybe it was like almost like an alien type thing from another type of dimension. Because I have a number of her tapes, and I'm so glad I was able to. When I was at her conference in Baltimore a couple of years, I was able to pick up a whole bunch of her tapes.
I got some too.
Yeah, and I'll never part with those, by the way. But I mean, I can always make copies of them. But I mean, she lays it all out, including the idea that sometimes when she was recording on open reel tape recorders, that she would actually hear something that came through that made no sense at all, and then when she played it in reverse, it made perfect sense. So sometimes these ghosts were actually imprinting this stuff on the reverse or wrong side of recording.
Sure.
tape. And that's why she tried to explain it off. And I agree with her that that's one of the reasons that people often, and most times, if you capture a true EVP, not something coming through a ghost box or a spirit box or an obelisk, a true EVP, if you actually capture one of those, that you don't hear it at the time, because
Sure.
she was trying to say, and I agree with her, that what they're doing is they're using this magnetic recording tape, okay, and imprinting their voices directly on the tape, bypassing the physical microphone. And that's why you don't hear them until you play it back. How it got on the reverse and wrong side, she doesn't know, because she never reuses her tapes. She opens up every day. She'd open up a brand new open reel tape, put it on there, fresh in the box. Never bulk erase, because even bulk erasing, sometimes you can leave remnants of what you had on there, unless you do it properly, and even that's not good. So she couldn't explain a lot of these voices, and so obviously she was speaking with something, and she was doing it every single day at the same time. So it was like she was having a dialogue. Yeah.
I got several of her tapes she sent to me too. I talked with her, quite a bit before she passed away, unfortunately. And like, she sent me some of her tapes, and those are definitely something I treasure, I've got, and I won't get rid of. And it's just that voice, this is Sarah. She always announces her name and date, she gets ready to record, and she had that distinct voice. It's like, but we going back to the magnetic stuff. We done some experiments into EVP too with the magnetic tapes. We actually left wrapped tapes, not even in. We didn't even put them in our recorder. We left them wrapped to see if that could happen, if they could physically, or some type of imprint onto the magnetic tape itself without using the microphone or the device itself. We just put tapes out there, and asked the ghosts and spirits questions, and to see if they could imprint anything onto the magnetic tape. Then we unwrapped them and put them into into our cassette recorders and listened to them. We didn't get anything, but it's something we tried, just to see if they could physically imprint onto the magnetic tape and bypass the machine altogether. Right. And I've done so many like EVP experiments and ITC experiments. Like some of them I won't even talk about on the air because I don't want people to think I'm crazy. But
yeah. Well, we all know you're crazy, though.
Yeah.
But the same thing. Going back to your experiment, I mean, just because you did it, I don't know how many times you tried that. You don't always capture EVPs necessarily.
Right.
I mean, you could try that one time and twice, or maybe it never happened, and maybe the third or fourth time it would happen. So I mean,
sure.
It's always something to maybe revisit that area. I actually have 2 open reel tape recorders. I got a smaller one for the smaller. I think they're the 4-inch or 6-inch, and I got the big giant 8-inch ones. So I got 2 ones that are one's an Ampex, which is really nice. It's got some really nice dynamic microphones too. But I'd like to maybe try doing some of those here, and kind of going back and getting away from digital a little bit and going back to the analog.
Oh yeah.
And just to see what you pick up, because I still have 2 or 3 cassette tape recorders here too, and even
me too.
The mini tape record, the little tiny mini tapes that sometimes people use for dictation and so forth. And I used to have the one with you actually hit the pedal to pause it as you're typing, and you hit it again, like for secretaries and so forth.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you go back to the old school stuff,
for
you
sure,
might get something.
Some of the best EVPs and loudest and clearest EVPs I've ever captured were analog and on magnetic tape. I mean, like some of my best recordings I ever got were not digital. They were the old style. You had to be careful with cassette recorders, though, and because you'll pick up the internal gears inside. Yeah. So you have to put a microphone on there.
Exactly. Yeah, we use an external mic, so we don't get the noise of the gears turning the little wheels inside the cassette, because that kind of makes a strange sound. But when we go back and we start using, like I say, old school stuff like that, but we're using a big open reel tape recorder and we're using dynamic microphones, then we're really getting into a different area, rather than use the condenser microphones, as they're called basically in the digital. We're actually using professional grade microphones, dynamic microphones with certain audio range frequencies they're able to pick up. And what you're actually doing then is, when we're recording an EVP, for that EVP to record, either one of 2 things has got to happen. Either the voice has got to come through the microphone and vibrate the diaphragm inside the microphone, which then sends a signal down to be recorded, or it's going to directly imprint itself directly onto the tape. And I guess there's really no way to determine which way it is if we're using a microphone of that matter. So there's no way to tell how that happens. But unless you're able to somehow do some sort of experiment that you would be able to hear, see, or view in some way the diaphragm vibrating in some way, shape, or form. If you're able to pick up that slight sound in the microphone, that would indicate it's being picked up that way. It's always something I've wanted to try, because last year we did a lot of old ITC experiments. I have some old little tiny television sets I picked up at the flea market. That basically are analog. They will never pick up a signal because everything is digital now. So I mean, you have rabbit ears, you can hook it up to the biggest antenna you got. They won't pick up anything. They have to have a converter box, or they got to be hooked up to cable or coax or something. They don't pick up any signal. So we use those for ITC. We'll maybe put them down, turn them on, videotape the screen, ask questions, and see if either sounds come through or figures come through on there, and that's a good way of doing an ITC experiment with something that again will not be able to pick up an audible or visual signal.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah, that's a real good idea too. Christine's still asking questions. I think she's real curious about the ghost boxes and the white noise and stuff. I forgot to tell you that some good news about the ghost boxes is there are some like companies that are commercially, they're actually making ghost boxes for sale to the public. So you don't have to get on eBay and try to find one and modify yourself. There's like the PSB7, the PSB11. The Ghost Stop has got a new one out called like the S Box or something, I believe.
Yeah, right. I've seen that.
Yeah, there's several, available ghost boxes that you can buy from like ghoststop.com, different ghost hunting stores. So, if you don't know what models you need and don't know how to, you don't want to take a radio apart and ruin your radio, not knowing what you're doing, you can actually buy pre-made ghost boxes, and they're pretty good. I mean, if you guys have been watching any of our videos, we've been testing one called the PSB11, and it scans really fast though, and we haven't had a lot of luck with it, but we still use it and try, so.
Well, the good thing about the PSB11 is that the feature to disconnect from the radio, which is a great feature because you can turn it on, you can pull the antenna up and pick up the radio signals and actually turn the antenna on, or you can turn the antenna off, and then in theory, you're not picking up any signals, unless
Sure.
again, if you're really close to a big, huge 50,000 watt transmitter, then you still might get some coming through because it's that strong of a signal. But if you're out like with you guys out in the middle of nowhere,
Right.
you got the antenna turned off, then in theory you shouldn't have anything up. The other good thing is that the different ways you can scan with that. You can scan AM, FM, AM, all different ways,
Right.
and reverse, and increase or decrease the speed. And that's the kind of the neat feature. The very first time, and I don't know if I ever told you, I probably did. The very first time we used that PSB11 was at Paris Hospital.
Yeah.
And we were in the one of the surgical suites upstairs, and I said something like, because we were it sounded like maybe something coming through, but we couldn't tell. It was real subtle, real low voices, and I said something like, "Scream really loud" or something, and he goes, "Oh." And a woman's voice comes through and says hello. And everybody in the room heard it and immediately recognized it as a hello in a female voice. And I go, wow, the very first time I used it, I got something. So I've seen others, and I question others, and I won't mention their names, but I question others who sometimes really back up the speeds where you're getting a lot of the stations coming through. Then you're hearing voices and so forth because you're slowing it down. The idea for having the faster speed is to eliminate that possibility of having those come through.
Sure.
I mean, you can kind of back it up and play with it a little bit, but I don't back it up to the point where you're just like, you're hearing full sentences coming through and it's coming through the radio.
Yeah.
And the last feature I like, obviously, is that it's like basically having two SB7s in there.
Sure.
Two different scanning devices, and the speaker is extremely loud.
Yeah.
So when you turn that on, you don't really need an external speaker like you do with the SB7. The SB7 you can turn up to 30 and you can barely hear it.
Yeah.
So the SB11, I mean, it's got two brilliantly loud speakers in there. So a lot of nice features in that. Now I basically use the SB7 pretty much predominantly when I put it into my mini portal.
Right.
So I tune it in there, and then I back it up to I eliminate all the scanning noise, and I'll just allow the voices to come through. And that's how I use my SB7 pretty much now.
Yeah, I sweep my RSB 11 at about 150 milliseconds. I put them both on it. That's where I probably keep it at most of the time. It seems to have the best results there, like about 150. I know, so I go above or below that. I mean, too fast, it's like you get too fast, it doesn't seem like you get anything. You get too slow, you get too much. So it's like,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think they both. I think the SB11 also has a temperature feature in there too. I believe.
Yes. Yep, it does.
where you can turn it on, and if it increases in temperature, it's gonna be a red. If it decreases, it's gonna be blue.
Right.
The only thing about that, if it decreases by 1/10 of a degree, it starts alerting right away.
Yeah.
I wish there's a way that you could make it not so sensitive, and maybe say only allow it to alert, say maybe if it drops, say 2 or 3 degrees.
I know.
That would be more accurate.
We actually had ours alert last night. I don't know if you watched our investigation of that house we done. We had the temperature alert on it. It was weird. It was only when I turned the video light off. I asked if they liked the light or not. I'd turn it off. The temperature would go up a degree and alert that box every time I would turn it off. You'd think if you turn the light off, some of the heat from the light would cause it to go down, but it was going up a degree instead of down a degree when I turned the light off, which was a little bit weird, but it still wasn't going up, enough to really say, oh my gosh, this is definitely paranormal. I mean,
yeah. And that's the same thing with the REM pod. I know some REM pods also have that temperature feature in there too. I think the one Kathy Para from our group, she has one that is a little bit nicer than the one I have, because you're actually able to have multiple settings where it will alert for further away. Normally you have to get to maybe about 1 inch or 2 away before you start breaking the field. Hers you can get maybe 3 or 4 inches away, which is a little bit better. But again, when you turn that temperature thing on, it to me it just alerts too much, and it gets to be a bit too annoying.
Yeah. Some more questions here.
I know I was kind of looking through, somebody had mentioned something about the Echo Box. Have you ever worked with the Echo Box at all?
Yeah, I have. Are you talking about the app or the actual ear?
Yeah, the app on your cell phone. It's called the Echo Box.
Yeah.
My biggest thing with the Echo Box is that there's so many dials and settings, but you can never find anything that describes what those dials and settings do.
Right.
You set this to this and this to that, and you screw this, and there should be something online. I know the guy who designed it. His name is Danny something with an R. I can't remember his name, but he was at we went to an ITC convention at the Evangelical Spiritualist Church, and he was there showing the Echo Box, and the other guy, I can't even think of their names now, but the other guy was also doing some other ghost boxes, and and they call them Andy boxes because his name was Andy, and he was there. But even when they were demonstrating that, and he was demonstrating the Echo Box, he said, I'm just going to turn it here. I'm thinking, well, maybe you should tell us what all those dials do, because or print something up on the internet as a YouTube video that this is how you run it, because I'd like to try more of it. But I really don't know if I turn this dial what it does.
Right. Yeah, I'm real cautious with the ghost box apps like that. There's hundreds of them out there.
They have an iObelisk too, by the way, too. So
yeah, I think so.
Like the iPhone.
I'm just real cautious with the apps because somebody could easily pre-program those to say certain things at a certain time, and it's like that's why I like the actual ghost boxes where we're pulling the radio stations out of the air, not something somebody's pre-programmed. I'm not saying, as an ITC researcher myself, it's like I'm not saying you can't get stuff from these apps, because I truly believe that they can probably manipulate any type of electronic device if they figure out how to do it, and form something. It just, when they do it, I want to make sure that it's absolutely, not somebody, pre-programmed something into this app or this something to say something. That's why I'm real cautious with some of these apps.
They might be good for somebody, maybe just starting out in the field that has a limited budget.
Sure.
That's all they can afford is to go on and pay $5 for an app or $10 for whatever it is to start off with. Because I caution people the same way. I say that a lot of these apps, and I've seen so many of them. I go through a lot of. I've tested out so many of these free apps that you can go through.
Yeah.
And some of them are really just really junk. Really.
Yeah.
And that's why they're free.
Oh yeah.
But some of the ones like the Phasma box, to me, they're great in my opinion. They got some great stuff that I've had in the Phasma box and some of the other devices. Yeah. So it really depends on what you buy. I think I purchased the most recent Echo Box. upgrade when I got my new phone a while back, and I think I paid $15 for it. It wasn't too bad. If you go and you buy a ghost box, I mean, you can spend a lot more than $15 for the ghost box, a real ghost box. So
Oh,
that might be somebody for a limited budget just starting out. But again, I would caution people that use those, take the results with a grain of salt, because you're not really exactly sure what you're picking up. Save it, and cut it out maybe. But I mean, I wouldn't jump up and down right away and say that it's actually really a spirit, because as you say, there's so many ways that they can make these apps, and you never know what they've how they program these.
Yeah. Christine's asking some good questions here.
Let's hear them.
She's asking how I feel about the periscope. Well, actually, we extensively. I assume she's talking about. There's a periscope made by, what is it, Paranologies? Isn't that the company?
Right. It's like a little 3 or 4 little things that stick up in the air. And
Right. Yeah. And then they've got one now that we really tested the heck out of during our haunted tours last year, called the Periscope 360. And I have to caution people about that one, even though we had some weird stuff happen with that thing. It's supposed to pick up moving static fields, but the technology isn't in the device. I don't know if you you ever look at the Skeptical Inquirer, some of the stuff they debunk some of the stuff, and they do gear reviews and stuff too, but the technology inside the Periscope 360 is not actually there to pick up a moving static field anyway. And it's like static fields are usually stationary, so it's like and it claims to pick up moving static fields and stuff that will go around it. I think pretty much the Periscope 360 is kind of borderline being a hoax, other than the fact that because we used it. One of the guys that went with me had one, and we tested the heck out of this thing. But what we did find useful with it is it's an indicator of colors. Like if you ask the ghost or spirit to light it up green or light it up red or something like that, I seen intelligent responses with the Periscope 360 regarding that, but not its ability to track a field.
Right. The thing with those devices is, I caution people, and I hope one of these days I'm going to do a nice YouTube video on it. But I did a little bit when I started off. A couple of my first live Facebook videos going back probably about 3 or 4 weeks now or something like that. I don't know how long I've been doing them, but I've been doing them every day. I kind of did a demonstration when I put the REM pod and the Mel meter, and then kind of asked the question, and oh wow, the stuff lit up. But I didn't tell everybody I had a walkie-talkie. I was keying in at the time when I asked those questions, which basically will set those devices off. Now, I always am very cautious about any type of new device that's supposed to pick up EMF to see if it's going to be alerted by either a walkie-talkie going off, or in some cases fluorescent lights. And I've noticed when we were doing an investigation at the Manning Mansion in Rockford a number of years ago for Kathy Kressel, there's an upstairs room, and I turned the REM pod on before I turned the lights off, and the thing was just going absolutely crazy because there was fluorescent lights overhead. So when I flipped the switch, it got quiet again. So you got to be careful about those kind of things. And the other thing you were mentioning about static fields, I always kind of assume that when people are using EMF meters and they're picking up some sort of field or some sort of disturbance in an area, if they're getting a constant, 0.3, 0.2, 1.2, whatever the case may be, it could very well be something in the environment, because we're getting a constant reading and it's not fluctuating. What I'm more interested in is when you put up a device, whether it be a tri-field or a Mel meter or whatever, and then you set it down, you're not touching it, you're not moving it around, and then you get a big, huge spike, and then it goes away. To me, that's a lot more interesting, because that to me indicates it's a moving EMF field of some kind, something that went through the area, quickly spiked the meter, and it's gone. It went to the left, right, front, back. We don't know which direction. Hopefully we'll be able to figure that out with the GS2 if we got those all together at the same time and something breaks the field. So I always look for these moving static fields, which to me is a little more interesting than these fields that just seem to be very stationary and just keep. Even the tri field may alert to like a 0.2 or 0.3. What is it picking up? Obviously, it's not picking up something in the environment.
Right.
At least AC. Is it picking up a magnetic reading though? I mean, if you get a magnet near the tri field, it will pick up that, but it won't pick up an AC field.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I don't know. We could talk all night here, Dale. I don't know how long to go.
It's up to you. I mean, it's just, I don't mind. I don't mind sticking around. I enjoy talking.
Yeah. Trying to read some
anytime
more.
Anytime you want to end it, just you're not going to insult me in any way. Just if you get tired, let me know. I'm ready to go anytime.
Oh yeah, I enjoy sitting here talking to you anyway. It's like we get talking on the phone, and it's like the same thing,
Yeah, exactly.
Mikey says here, I think I read somewhere when you guys were mentioning about the heat still presents when you turn the light off, and still the meters were spiking a couple degrees or so instead of decreasing. Mikey was telling me this. I think he's talking about, I don't know if he's talking about the temperature on the SB11 maybe. Not sure there.
Yeah, I'm trying to look at that myself here.
Yeah. But yeah, if you guys had any more questions, oh crud. Yeah. Dickerson just remind me, we do have 30 minutes till the 4-hour mark, and Facebook shuts you off after 4 hours. So that's probably, okay. Yeah, we probably want to get everything in here within the next, 5 or 10 minutes for sure. So Mikey said, sorry, that's an unedited version of what he's trying to say. But yeah, I definitely we'll definitely have you on again, Dale. It's been a fun time. I mean, you guys out there, if you got any more questions for Dale while he's on here, just shoot me some questions here. We got, like Dickerson said, we got 30 minutes till the 4-hour mark here. Let's see if we got any others. But they might be asleep now. I don't know. But yeah, I know one of the questions Christine had too was about white noise, and whether you can just use white noise in the background and do stuff. But yeah, I mean, sometimes we do that with the recorders. We'll play white noise, but I find a lot of times sometimes that will cover EVP up if you're using a regular, doing the regular EVP session with a digital recorder too. But some of the older recorders had kind of a white noise built into them, like the Panasonic RDR60. That's what its claim to fame was. It created its own internal noise that the ghosts or spirits use to manipulate to form words or sentences. But yeah, white noise can be used, but you just got to be careful with it.
Yeah, I think Sarah, when she was using Sarah Estep, when she was using white noise, it wasn't like you actually really heard it a lot. I mean, it wasn't like she had it like turned on full blast, and you kind of muffled her out. It was just a little bit in the background, and I think she kind of experimented with that to find, an area of the amount of white noise that seemed to be most beneficial for her when she was doing EVPs. I actually use a sound machine every night when I go to sleep, because for some reason I cannot sleep in a completely quiet room. I mean, I hear everything. I hear the dog barking next door. I hear somebody walking up and down the driveway, and it really muffles everything out. So I got mine turned up pretty loud. But even when I go to motels, I got a portable sound machine. But that's kind of the same thing. You're kind of muffling things out a little bit, but I think for EVP and voices, you're actually, like I said, I think you're giving it some sort of medium which they can actually print or use that energy to make some sort of voice come through. And she actually, I believe she said that she used white noise and she used pink noise. I go, well, what the heck is a pink
Oh
noise?
yeah.
But I think I heard her mention it at least one time.
Yeah.
So maybe she had, noise generators that generated different
Oh yeah.
frequencies of background noise, which that would be interesting to experiment with, because there may be some perfect white noise or background noise frequency that's very beneficial to the spirit. So
Yeah, I've actually I have used pink noise, white white noise. I believe that there was brown noise, but yeah, I had a generator, and Adobe Audition will actually generate white noise and pink noise also. If you play that in the background, you can generate that, and there's brown noise. There's a lot of different noises you can generate with different tone generators. I've tried them all. It doesn't seem to really matter. I don't think, as far as whether it's brown, pink, or white. But,
right, yeah,
just
even the Obelisk X has a noise generator. I assume it's just white noise. It's not very loud. I guess you could when we use the Obelisk X or the PX, we always attach a external speaker to make it come out a little bit louder. So I guess you could boost that white noise level using an external speaker. But then you have to basically use two obelisks. You'd have to use one obelisk for the white noise, one obelisk for the voices coming through.
Sure.
So I've never actually tried that, and it's not that. At least I haven't found that very beneficial so far. But again, I'm always experimenting with stuff, trying to find the proper medium that we might need to pick something up.
Sure.
As Einstein said, I'm just gonna. Edison said Edison when he was building that supposed communication device that he never finished, and they lost the plans. I mean, if anybody would have been able to devise something to communicate with spirits, that genius of Edison probably would have been able to.
Oh yeah, he was building a telephone for the dead.
Yeah, he was so sure that that something that a machine could be developed that would be able to allow some people from another realm that have passed over to still communicate with this world. And I guess that really turned the world on its head when he said that, because they were probably thinking, this guy's getting senile now or something. He's really kind of going off the deep end. But I think he was onto something there.
Oh yeah.
And I mean,
we may be close.
Found.
Yeah, we may be close today with our current ghost box technology as to what he was even working on. Because there was some different stuff I know Edison was working on. That could be close to what we're getting to today. I mean, we're getting there.
Oh yeah, for sure. Trying to find that actual quote. I don't know where it is offhand, but he had an actual quote that was pretty interesting coming from him. Of course, I mean, even Einstein, kind of said, energy can't be created nor destroyed. So I mean, it kind of changes form. So it's just, I think eventually we're going to make some sort of connection here. The technology is just going with leaps and bounds. I mean, just compare that to when I started in the 1970s, and this is only like 40 years later or so. And what we got now, just that 40 years. I mean, going from the Wright brothers in 1902 or 1903 to 1969, 60 years later, and we're on the moon. I mean, that just shows you that the human mind, put to the test, can really create pretty much anything. We just got to put our minds to it. And I think we really got to start treating this science of parapsychology and ghost research as a true science, and not simply some bunch of crazy people running around trying to talk to spirits. Because when you go into a parapsychology course, and I've actually taken one little parapsychology course for like 3 weeks, was at Morton Valley Community College here. and I knew this before I got there, but basically they went over that anyway, that, parapsychology itself goes into not just ghosts. I mean, it goes into mostly what we can produce with our own mind, telepathy, ESP, precognition, clairvoyance, remote viewing, telekinesis, pyrokinetic activity, poltergeist phenomena, and then a very small fraction of that is ghosts and hauntings.
Right.
So really, it's mostly the parapsychology is the unknown powers of the mind, but then a sliver of that, it goes into possible survival of the human soul after we die, which I think we all have our beliefs upon that. And obviously, I wouldn't be in the field today if I didn't think there was something to it. That's how I got involved. I think in the field was to try to, in some way, shape, or form, prove the existence of ghosts. And by proving the existence of ghosts, then you pretty much prove the existence of life after death.
Right.
And you're proving that there is a surviving personality, some part of us, consciousness, energy, whatever you want to call it, actually survives the body. There's been tests done and scientific studies that when the physical body dies, that there is a slight loss of weight. So very minuscule, but slight loss of weight, and maybe that's the soul leaving the body. I mean, people have had near-death experiences, have had out-of-body experiences. So, some people, the doctors and scientists will try to maybe kind of rule that off by saying, "Oh, it's just the medication they're on," and things of that nature, not realizing that it may simply have been an OB, an out-of-body experience, or some sort of astral projection or something of that nature. These are all different areas that kind of ride on the coattails of what we do, ghosts and hauntings, but slightly different. It's all part of our human psyche, I guess.
Sure. Yeah. And, going into the whole psychological aspect of it, I get into a lot of that. It's sad to see these new groups that started. I mean, I keep saying this a lot, but I look around the internet and these people that started up for watching these TV shows. It's sad because nobody gets in I call us old school investigators, I guess, gets into the true aspect of what paranormal research is anymore. They don't go into the psychological part of it, the forensic part of it, the science, just like they're out there to get scared and they're out there to find demons. And it's just like, there's so much to being a paranormal investigator that these people just don't do anymore. They're not trying to research, the different, types of fields and just the mental things. Like, we're talking about, the psychological stuff that can happen from, like I was talking about, the mental stuff with demonic possessions. I think it's just mental illness, and stuff. But there is true things that the mind can do we don't understand too. Like the, the ESP and the,
we use it's just a very small portion of our brain. That's what doctors and people in the medical field believe. But I've always said it like this, and I say it over and over again whenever I do a presentation or a workshop. I always say that if you're interested in getting involved in the paranormal, instead of just, it's so easy, like you said, nowadays you basically get a couple of pieces of equipment, you get some business cards printed out, you go and you get a little website, voila, you're a ghost hunter, right? I mean, that's not always the best way to do it. I always suggest people that are really serious and really gung-ho about getting into this field, that they join a group that's been around for a while. My group, your group, somebody else's group that has actually studied this, actually been involved with it for a while, and learn from them to see if, first of all, if this is what you really want to do. You might find out after a year or two, and that's why I've seen so many of these fly-by-night websites. They're here one week, the next week they're gone. You can't find them anymore. See if that's really what you want to do, and then get involved. And then maybe after that, maybe split off and start your own group once you've kind of learned everything, because there is so much to learn and so much to know in this field that you really, you need to go and pick up books and read books about the subject. You need to go to different conferences, hear other people talk about it, go into workshops, go take a college course if they have one on parapsychology, learn from people like me or you or other people. And that's how you really get involved properly in this field, rather than just jump in with both feet and just say, "Hey, I'm a ghost hunter now, and here we are." So, and I see that so many times, and people make that mistake. And I'm not like blowing my own whistle here and just saying join my group or something, but I'm just saying join a group. Just join any group that's been around for a while, for 5 or 10 years or something, and learn from some experience and let them show you how to do it properly. And off on your own at that point.
And I've taught several, paranormal investigator courses and classes. Now the local college now is having us teach out there. Man, Dickerson was teaching a paranormal investigation class out at the college out at Lincoln Trail. We taught one here last fall that was, pretty interesting. So it's kind of cool because now the public's, they're wanting to get involved and do that type of stuff. So hopefully we'll get the good information out to people and I told them in my class, you don't have to join my group, just get educated, educate yourself about, paranormal stuff and all that. Don't just start a team and, go into houses and because a lot of them will end up shutting down quick. I've seen that happen a lot, these teams, but there's a lot of them out there.
Especially if you're very young, if you're like in your teens or your early 20s, hey, you got plenty of time. Learn properly. I mean, like you say, pick up a book, read some articles, go to the internet, for God's sakes. I mean, you can find so much on the proper way if you go to the proper sites about how to investigate. I mean, you can. I'm sure you got YouTube videos on your YouTube page about that, and I'm sure other people do. I'm sure that most people are intelligent enough, I hope at least, that can tell which are the real deal and which ones are the scams, and there are a lot of those out there, unfortunately, but there are very good people out there in the field that can and I'll tell you what, and this I'm not too proud to say this or whatever, but as many years as I've been doing this, I mean, I'm still learning. I'm still learning, literally. I go to conferences or I hear speakers talk and they say they're doing something a certain way. I go, wow, why didn't I think about that?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Why didn't I do it that way? I mean, and that's what's neat about this field is all the bright minds that are coming into the field. And, I will kind of credit it partly for these TV shows because they have brought a lot of people interest. But not necessarily the right way to do it. They have brought the interest to the field. And then it's really up to the individual to make that determination of what is a real and what is not so real. But that's what I would always suggest.
Yeah, they've at least opened the minds of the American, people around the world to paranormal research. I definitely give it credit for that. Just like you said, just now take your spark for that, newly whatever formed interest, and educate yourself and don't do it the way they do. But definitely, I agree. I think these TV shows have definitely brought a lot of people into the field that wouldn't necessarily have been there without them, without these shows.
And like I said, I'm not going to mention any shows by name, but a lot of them are really crappy. They're terrible. But I will say, throughout the years, especially if you're on for several years, some of these shows are getting a little better. They're trying to get away from some of these crappy investigative techniques and protocols that are sometimes very flawed. When I watch them, my wife, she's sitting next to me and she goes, "Why do you watch these shows?" Because you get so aggravated. You're sitting there, they shouldn't be doing that. They should be doing it. And I do that all the time.
Yeah.
But I just, what I do sometimes seriously is I'll record a program like that. And then I'll have my meeting downstairs. And especially if I have some new people or people that have been with me for a while, and I'll put an episode on of so-and-so, whatever it is. And I'll say, watch this and tell me what they did wrong, in your opinion, how you would do something different than they did. And it's a training session. And, maybe they didn't do anything wrong, but that's what kind of opens the mind for people to say, well, hey, if I was in this situation, I would have did it differently.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. Yeah, I'm the same way. I sit there and watch these shows, and I'm like, oh my god, they need to be doing this or that. They're doing that wrong, but for sure. But Lynn says TV shows are entertainment, not true investigation, but they are more popular at paracons than the real investigators like Dale.
Well, thanks. I try to, try to explain it the best way I can to people and try to educate people. I also try to, I've written books on the subject, and that doesn't really mean anything. It was really my attempt to get out, what I had uncovered, my techniques. Not that the techniques that are in my book are the only way to investigate. I would never say that. Only thing I will say is some of the techniques in my book work well for our group. What we've done with these techniques seem to get results. Now, they might not work for somebody else. You might get to a place that it's just not very active, and you might say, oh, Dale's techniques they suck. But really, it's just because there's no ghost there, they're not talking or something. That could be the case too. But I always just try to say, use anything you find in my books or in basically or on anybody's site or anybody's YouTube page. Just kind of use that and experiment and see if that's the way it works for you. It might open your mind to doing something differently, slightly, or a slight variation, and that's how people find out about that later in conferences, because they'll say, oh, I'm doing such and such this way, and then you'll say, oh wow, why didn't I think about something like that? And that's how things happen. It just opens people's minds to a different reality.
Yep. All right, we got 10 minutes, Dale. So talking about your books real quick, tell them where they can find your books.
I'll quickly go through them real quick. Windy City Ghosts 1 and 2 are just ghost stories around the Chicagoland area. Windy City 1's probably got some of the more famous ghost stories: Resurrection, Bachelor's Grove, St. James, Maple Lake, Hull House. Some places maybe you saw, maybe you didn't see, Jason. Then I have the one on spook lights called Illuminating the Darkness Mystery Spook Lights, that goes all across the country looking for ghost lights and spook lights. I have two kind of like, I would call them almost like how-to tech books, Field Guide to Ghost Hunting Techniques and Field Guide to Spirit Photography, which I really need to revise the spirit photography one probably, because when I wrote it, we were still just transitioning from 35 to digital. I needed to put a lot more emphasis on digital because not too many people use 35. But some of that is still very useful. And of course, my latest book, The Field Guide to Haunted Highways and Bridges, which is kind of our haunted infrastructure across the country. That was a very fun book to write, because some of these places were impossible to find. They were like Hell Bridge or Help Me Road, and that's not the real name. You'd have to basically find out from locals what that name of the street was, or that name of that bridge was in some cases. So it was very interesting. I was able to get contact a lot of other paranormal teams through that book, find out what they did, what kind of investigations they did as well. But they can find them on my website at ghostresearch.org. There's a big section right in the center, actually along the right-hand side of the page. All the books are listed right there. You click on there, you can read more about them. You can buy them right from there, and you buy them from there, from my site, instead of Amazon or something, then you'll get an autographed copy if you want.
Awesome.
You don't necessarily get them if you get it from Amazon. So
sounds good. I got your website across there right now, so definitely, guys, check out ghostresearch.org. If you're interested in Dale's books, I highly recommend them. I've read several of them myself. They're extremely good and entertaining, really educational. So check his site out, and give him a like and subscribe. I think he's got a YouTube page also, I believe. Facebook page. Go like all his pages, and definitely keep him out. And he goes live at 4:00 every day. He's been going live, so if you haven't seen him, go check out his old videos, and he'll probably be doing it again here in the future, won't you, Dale? Here at 4.
Yeah, I've been doing them for the last at least 3 weeks, going on 4 weeks now, every single day. So
awesome.
And I guarantee you, I won't run out of things to say, to talk about.
Yeah, it's like, I know we can sit here and talk all night. I'll definitely have you on again, Dale, for a second interview. But I had a great time tonight, and I appreciate you coming on to the show. I know everybody's enjoyed this. A lot of comments, a lot of people liking this. So I thank you for coming on.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate it. And it's always good talking to you, Jason. And hopefully once this Corona is over with, we all get back together and do some real investigating.
For sure. Yeah. I'll come up your way and you definitely come my way. And we got Tennessee and Gettysburg to look forward to. So
absolutely. And maybe you're saying maybe Ashmore.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We're doing Ashmore July 25th. So definitely come down for that. That'll be awesome. So
okay, sounds good.
All right, Dale.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being on the
show. Jason. I appreciate it.
Talk to you later, Dale.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Again, that was Dale Kazmarek from the Ghost Research Society. Awesome interview with him. We'd like to thank all you guys for watching our show tonight. We're getting ready to hit the 4-hour mark. I love talking to Dale. I can talk to him on the phone like that too. We can sit there and talk all night. So next week, we're going to have another guest on here at 8. It's going to be Joe Turry. We're going to talk about the documentary we are making regarding Elizabeth Betsy Reed. We started filming some more for that here recently. So you definitely want to check that out. If you guys were on earlier, the winner of our contest tonight, and you won 2 free tickets to our haunted tour in October, or you and a friend can come on our live feed on one of our investigations. Tammy Joe was the winner, one of our top fans. So we're going to be doing more contact tests like that. Thank you guys for watching. Again, check back in next week, same time, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. And don't miss tomorrow night's investigation. We got an awesome investigation coming up tomorrow night in Merrim, Indiana. We're going to be investigating the Merrim Library House there in Barn. So don't miss that. We're going to go live, I believe, at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. It'll be 9 over there in Indiana, but check that out. Definitely, guys. Hope you had a great time tonight. And I think next week's going to be jam-packed and pretty cool, too. So I will see you all tomorrow night if you tune in. Thanks, guys. Have a good evening.